of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, it's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hope you're having a lovely afternoon. We've got lots to talk about. Some laughs. Hopefully not too much crying. And, of course, a lot of optimism. Well, as we reported yesterday, President Trump has instructed Acting Director of National Intelligence Bill Pulte to declassify everything. And like clockwork, it seems like the deep state is responding. Hillary Clinton, one of those people, going out there and quite literally signaling to people in the federal government that they should directly thwart the efforts of the Director of National Intelligence. Good God. Also, it appears that we may have an answer as to why we don't have the election report from Tulsi Gabbard's Director of National Intelligence. And that may have to do with efforts to sabotage the information from coming out. So if you guys wouldn't mind, do me a favor, hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. And yes, it's time to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to be right back after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right, good afternoon, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me first say thank you to Esther G13 over there on YouTube and Pilled. Yes, Esther, we will go ahead and play the Hillary Clinton, James Comey classic song, What Difference Does It Make? We will go ahead and get that out there from Socialist Mop. And then also Smart Poker, thank you very much. Good evening, beautiful patriots. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. And also thank you to Real Principled Enigma. Brothers and sisters, the fact that you're here means the Lord gave you another chance to get it right. Go forward with courage and faith to meet the rest of this day successfully. God bless Zach and Lisa and all. Thank you so much for that, my friend. Appreciate you being here. Also, over on Ko-Fi, I need to say thank you very much. Yesterday, or no, 5 minutes ago, Catherine bought me a coffee over there, $50, and she says, thanks for your great coverage of the news. I look forward to watching each evening. Catherine, I hope you're out there right now. Thank you for being here. I would like to begin today with perhaps something to make everybody smile. And as President Trump is tending to do, he posted a little jab at the deep state. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is Dr. Donald J. Trump, MD.
Have you or someone you know been diagnosed with TDS? The symptoms can be relentless. Fortunately, I'm Dr. Trump, and I have a treatment plan. Let's hear what some of my patients have to say.
I have been suffering for over a decade, and after listening to Dr. Trump, I can see some results.
Man, I've been suffering for years.
John Leguizamo.
I really didn't believe that was help out there. That was when I came across this video on TV.
I really thought I was a lost cause.
Whoopee.
This was gonna affect me for the rest of my life. But after using the treatment plan, I can see a difference.
I really wasn't sure I could help some of these people. They were so far gone, I wasn't really sure.
I had no idea how much this was affecting my life.
Ed Norton.
My work is slowed down. I'm hardly recognizable anymore. I just needed help.
I couldn't eat.
Robert De Niro.
I couldn't sleep. Constantly angry. I made everyone miserable around me.
I feel like I've aged 20 years in the last 2 years.
Julia Roberts.
I've been so concerned. I was really starting to worry about my future.
The treatment is simple. Turn off. Fake news. Say your prayers, and if you ever feel anxious, just have a Diet Coke like me, and you're going to see a remarkable difference in your life.
Just have a Diet Coke. Oh, my God. He's so funny. He's got such a good sense of humor. I'm sure that all of those people who were recreated for that ad are very, very upset. And that is really the beauty of it. They just can't get Trump off the brain, and so they suffer for it every day. Oh, my gosh. All right, so let us get into a little bit of the conversation about immigration and so-called birthright citizenship, the loophole that is currently existing in our law, which allows for illegal aliens to come here to the United States and pop a baby out, and then, of course, give that baby all of the comfort that a natural-born American citizen would have if their parents had been here legally and, of course, had a child. So Vice President J.D. Vance specifically called out Justice Amy Coney Barrett yesterday. Now, this decision could have been a split decision. Could have been split the other way is what I mean. It could have been 5 against instead of 5-4. But Justice Amy Coney Barrett, in my opinion, is captured along with so many other deep state hacks inside the federal government. Let's go ahead and hear the clip from J.D. because this really was a decision that should have gone the other way.
Everyone is talking about.
Okay, let me get the sound back on.
Conservatives are angry with Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Are you one of them?
Well, look, do I think she made a mistake in the ruling? I do. I don't know how anybody can say that if a person who is an illegal alien, or a person, for example, who's pregnant and comes to the United States on a vacation, they have a baby and all of a sudden their entire family gets the benefits of American citizenship. I don't think that's what the framers of the 14th Amendment had in mind. I don't think it's the right case. But look, it was 5-4. Sometimes the Supreme Court makes mistakes. We're going to try to correct that mistake, but nobody's perfect, including the Supreme Court. See you guys.
Okay, so what's important there is that, yes, they are working to correct the error. And as I've shown you in a couple of different ways, I think that those who disagreed with the decision of the majority spelled out pretty clearly exactly what needs to be done. The real question is, does Congress have the fortitude to get it done? Are there ways creatively that good people in Congress can make this happen? I think it's possible. However, this is a rug that I don't want to stand too firmly on. I'm willing to stand on a lot of rugs, but my ass is starting to hurt. I'm not going to lie. All right. Now, I also do want to play for you this clip of Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, I love this guy. You might not like everything about him, but I think he's got the right idea about a lot of things when it comes to the way this country ought to be run, when it comes to the right attitude that you need from someone in public service such as him. And he perfectly spells out the difference between the two very different types of people we have in this world. This is a concept I've heard before, but he is speaking, I believe, to a Corps of National Guardsmen. He's there with Pete Hegseth and a couple of other people from the administration, and he's talking about the people who build things up and then the other ones who destroy. And I would like to think that we are among the group of builders, and the people that we are fighting against are those destroyers.
All of civilization can be fundamentally divided into two groups of people, builders and destroyers. Between the people who do the work to build, sustain, and nurture civilization, the people who serve, who sacrifice, who give, who care for others, who protect others, who defend others, and those who only destroy, who litter, who rob, who graffiti, who deface, who degrade. Civilization only exists because of people like you. People who choose to serve, who choose to sacrifice, who choose to build, who choose to dedicate themselves to some cause greater than their own vanity. Each and every one of you is the reason why America's future is brighter than it's ever been before. So on behalf of President Trump, on behalf of the White House, on behalf of the U.S. government, and on behalf of the American people, thank you. You have our everlasting gratitude. God bless, and happy Independence Day.
God bless every single person who fights every day to make this country a better place to live. And this is one of the things that gives me so much hope for the future. There may be a lot of people out there who just want to destroy America, but I truly believe that there are more people like us that exist in this country. The people who want to build it back up, the people who want to make it a place that we can feel comfortable raising our children and our grandchildren. You take a look around and it's pretty easy to determine who are those people and who aren't those people. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota is a perfect example of the type of person who simply wants to break down this nation and destroy it. Now, in the context of the immigration conversation, Tim Walz just had an opportunity. He had an opportunity to protect children. Of course, I don't think anybody here believes that Tim Walz is interested in protecting children, but God puts tests in front of us every single day. As Principal Denigma said, you woke up today, so you have an opportunity to try once again. Try to be better. Try to do it just a little bit better than you did yesterday. He also wants us to know that the answer to yesterday's challenge was the Jerusalem Bible of 1966. Well, Governor Tim Walz, instead of doing the right thing, pardoned an illegal alien so that he could shield him from deportation. Now, this is not just any illegal alien. This was an illegal alien pedophile who was put in prison for raping a 10-year-old girl in Minnesota back in 2004. Now, the Department of Homeland Security wanted to get their hands on this Laotian illegal alien. His name is Tu Lu Vang. He didn't just rape a 10-year-old girl once. He did it on multiple occasions, even tried to buy her off with a $10 bill. Vang even blamed this child for her rape, and he excused himself by saying that it's a cultural thing. In the Laotian culture, it's totally cool to marry and have sex with girls as young as 12, never mind the fact that the girl he raped was 10 years old. If this truly was a cultural thing, then even he was outside of the boundaries of what's acceptable within his own culture. But I've known a number of Laotians who came to the United States after we pulled out of Vietnam back in the 70s. None of them have ever suggested to me that they thought it was cool to rape 10-year-old girls or to marry 12-year-old girls. Now, Vang served 0 prison time for the rape of this 10-year-old girl because Governor Tim Walz pardoned him, and because he pardoned him, this shielded him from the DHS being able to deport him because it gave him a clear record. Governor Tim Walz's decision to pardon an illegal alien convicted child rapist so he can remain in the United States of America is disgusting, said acting DHS Secretary Lauren Biss. These are the criminal illegal aliens that he and the Minnesota sanctuary politicians are protecting. Tu Lu Vang lost his legal status following his conviction for repeatedly sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl. Following the conviction, He was placed in removal proceedings, and he was issued a final order of removal by a judge. This pardon will take away that child's rapist's qualifying convictions that made him removable from the United States. Now, according to his conviction documents from the state of Minnesota in 2004, he repeatedly had penetrative sex, raped a 10-year-old girl, multiple occasions, forced oral sex upon her. I didn't even want to say this out loud. Anyways, the worst possible things that could happen to a 10-year-old girl at the hands of an adult man happened. He told police, "I made a mistake, but this is a minor thing. It's a cultural thing to marry and have sex with young girls as young as 12. And he also said that the child should be arrested because she was at fault. And he ultimately took a plea deal to plead guilty to the offense of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. He served no time in the state of Minnesota as part of that plea deal. And then, of course, Tim Walz yesterday pardons him for the offense through the Minnesota Board of Pardons. That Board of Pardons is entirely made up of the Minnesota governor, the Minnesota Attorney General, and the Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court. All of those pardons have to be approved by the governor at the end of the day. And since he's on the Board of Pardons, there you go. The DHS also said, "It is disturbing that Minnesota sanctuary politicians are willing to protect criminal illegal aliens like this monster. This truly is one of the most disturbing developments to see play out in the United States of America." You know, there was a time where I think before all of the masks were off, when we were kind of, you know, as a group trying to determine, like, what would be the unifying force, right? What would be the major red pill that would bring the left and the right together? And I said it. I think plenty of you said it in the chat as well. And that was crimes against children. We all thought that crimes against children was going to be enough for these people to wake up and for people to come together and realize that this is not really about left and right against each other. This is about the deep state, elite, pedophile child traffickers against the humanity of this world. But it turns out that only people on the right care about children. It turns out that if you're a Democrat, raping a 10-year-old is totally cool. So I guess we can just throw that out the window. I'm so disturbed that that is the case, but we are continually learning more and more about our enemies on a daily basis. Absolutely shocking. And that poor little girl, I don't know what happened to her. Obviously, we're not going to know anything. She's not going to come forward. It's been 12 years now. No, it's been 22 years. Oh, my God. 2004 was 22 years ago. Jeez, oh, Pete. Absolutely shocking and disgusting. It makes me think about that interview that I did with the Kazakhstani foreign exchange student who claimed that Tim Walz had sexually molested him when he was a teacher at the high school that the kid was attending. And how damaged that young man was, when he was telling the story. It really makes sense. I think the only people who could pardon a child rapist are probably child rapists themselves. I would love to see a federal law put on the books that would completely wipe away the possibility of any of these things happening in the future. All right. So, I'd also like to talk about probably one of the major reasons why solving the loophole of the 14th Amendment is so vital, besides the fact that, we have these illegal aliens coming here and raping kids, and sometimes they have babies. So we have a current representative, Representative Ramirez. She is a recipient of birthright citizenship. She was born to an illegal, and now she sits in Congress, and she hates America. She supports terrorists, and she is obviously very happy about this decision that was handed down by SCOTUS. So she is from Illinois. Well, she is a representative from Illinois. She's actually from, I think, someplace down in South America or something like that. But The circumstances of her birth are a perfect example of just how effective this ruling is going to be in destabilizing the United States of America, because these people don't just come to America and then make a living for themselves and integrate into the fabric of society. No, they eventually become politicians. They eventually become people in positions of influence, public officials, who, of course, are not going to support Americans. She's actually said, oh, you know what? Guatemala. That's where her mom was from. Mom was from Guatemala. And she actually said that she was a Guatemalan first, even though now she's an American citizen and she's sitting in Congress. Now, there was an article about her in CNN back in 2023. And it was noted by CNN that her mother crossed the Rio Grande while she was pregnant. And then she was born here on June 2nd, 1983 in Chicago, Illinois. And now she's serving in Congress. And she wants to take every opportunity to express just how bad this country is. You would think that maybe being given the gift of citizenship, that she might want to put America first. She might be somebody who would care about the future of this nation, but it's obviously completely the opposite. Now, in August of 2025, it was reported that she attended a Panamanian Congress in Mexico City, and this is where, in Spanish, she told the audience that she is a Guatemalan before she's an American. And then a month later, she took the death of a 21-year-old black student at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi, to lecture her followers on the United States history of race. Bitch, you're not even from here. Who are you lecturing? Go back to Guatemala. Tell me about the history of Guatemala. Why is it that everybody wants to get the hell out of Guatemala and come up to the United States of America? If this is such a shit country, then why are people bending over backwards and swimming across the Rio Grande to come here in the dead of night to pop out a dirt baby so that then they can grow up and join Congress like you? Now, in the situation that she used to try to impugn the character of the United States of America, Demetravian Trey Reed apparently died in Mississippi. He was found hanging from a tree, and she said that his death is a reminder of the country's legacy of racial terror and racialized violence. We grieve with his family and loved ones and affirm their calls for an investigation. Now, Reed was found hanging from a tree in the South, and Ramirez must have obviously decided that this was a lynching. And so because it was a lynching, it was a great time to insult the United States of America and insinuate that all white people, certainly those in Cleveland, Mississippi, must be racist, probably members of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, the only problem is that it was just one day later that his autopsy determined that his death was a suicide. Okay, so a young black man killed himself by hanging himself from a tree, and it had nothing to do with racism or anything like that. Do you think that she corrected the record? Do you think that she went on social media and offered prayers and hope for the family of Trey? No, she forgot about him conveniently because he was no longer a prop. She also, of course, despises anything that the United States has any involvement in. She has called the United States complicit in death, destruction, and displacement in Gaza. Even though Donald Trump is the guy who brought peace to the Middle East, even though every other president that ever sat in office before Donald Trump since the foundation of Israel did precious little to stop any death or destruction taking place in the region. So, you know, this woman is dumb as a block of bricks. So she likes to use history incorrectly and, of course, twist it to fit her own narrative. Let me say thank you to several people over here on Rumble. I really do appreciate the support, guys. Patrick says, Zach, just like the federal government did with COVID tests, what about having all international flights with women on them be required to take a pregnancy test before entering customs? If they are pregnant, they may not enter. I actually suggested this yesterday at the end of the show, so I think it's a great idea. I think that all women applying to come to the United States for any reason at all, if they are a foreigner, must take a pregnancy test. And if they are pregnant, perhaps they can enter, but they also have to have some type of enhanced monitoring. They must sign a declaration saying that they have no intention of staying in the United States. They must also sign a declaration explicitly foregoing any type of citizenship or status for their child, but also depending on their due date, if it is close enough that based upon the amount of time they plan to travel, they should not be allowed to enter the United States. I think that we could handle the pregnancy tests before they get on the plane, but it's not a bad idea to force the pregnancy test at the time of entry, when they actually come into the United States, like when they're going through Customs and Border Patrol. They could easily take a pregnancy test then. But yes, great minds think alike, Patrick. I knew I liked you. Lee Walden says, ahoy, Zach, Miss Lisa, and crew. You have never failed to report the news on the day with a critical eye to the truth. You score big on that. Never mind, your tan is almost as rich as mine. Love you, mean it. Love you too, brother. All right. Denise Ann says every single person that had a hand in releasing this piece of shit needs to have a millstone around their neck and be fairly close to an ocean. Yes, I agree. Mariana Trench, anyone? With free boat rides to the Mariana Trench. Lee Walden also says, Caddy, you like that one? Lee Walden says, we pray for the awakening and demand the reckoning where divine justice prevails. We stand in the breach. The promise of America is still within our reach and, more important, worth the fight. Amen, brother. Amen. And Will to Push Forward says, another foreigner who thinks their understanding of America and English is so good because they can go on a tirade along with their entitlement to selfish opportunity to exploit political grifters because Dems are doing it. Yes, absolutely. These people disgust me. All right, now, a couple of things related to immigration down here in Florida. Now, I'm sure you guys are aware, I've talked about it before, Governor DeSantis has deemed that all local law enforcement must work with ICE. However, there are a couple of key local offices who are refusing to do so. And our local law enforcement agencies, as I said, are required to assist the federal government with immigration enforcement. This has been happening over a year. There are no options here. There's no wiggle room. This is the way we do it in Florida. So if you don't want to do that in the state of Florida, you should move out of Florida. You should move to Illinois. Move to Maryland or Massachusetts or something like that. Go someplace where you can, just not have to do that stuff. But I'll tell you what, 100%, you should not be allowed to remain in law enforcement down here. If you're not going to enforce the law, then you're about as useless as tits on a board, and we can go ahead and have you go someplace else. So there are some agencies, which include some of the largest sheriffs and police departments in the state, who are refusing to cooperate. There was actually a state immigration enforcement council meeting that was held 2 days ago, and some of Florida's top cops said some are barely cooperating or they're simply not engaging at all with President Donald Trump's agenda. And this is a major priority. Now, maybe they think because DeSantis isn't going to be in power for much longer, they can go ahead and get away with it. However, there is a lot of money that comes from the state government of Florida that flows into these local police departments. I think that Governor DeSantis, as perhaps one of his final acts, we've got a couple of months left, Ron, why don't you just take that money and refuse to hand it over? Out of 394 law enforcement agencies in the state, we have 272 of them who are current and active with the 287G task force officer agreements. This is that agreement that President Trump had them sign. It was a law that was already on the books. It was just very rarely used or enforced. Now, out of those 272, 163 of those agencies are considered active operational. That means that they have made one or more 287G arrests, and the remaining 109 agencies have not yet made an arrest. Now, is that because we have no illegal immigrants down here in Florida? I tell you no. The answer is, of course not. I don't want to encourage. I want to encourage them, Grady Judd said. I don't want to see them publicly embarrassed for not complying with the law. Now, he's also the council chair of this law enforcement group. And the council members have given agencies time to earn accreditation, begin these arrests, and then learn how to enter data into Florida's suspected unauthorized alien encounters dashboard. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, who is a member of the council, said he was very sympathetic a while back to everybody getting up to speed and getting their sea legs under them. But I'm no longer sympathetic. He said that time is over. Follow the law, do what we're supposed to do. There's no glitches. Either you're doing it or you're not. Now, Judd also said local law enforcement should begin checking immigration status as just part of their daily routine. How simple is it? You pull somebody over, if they appear to maybe be a little shifty, you're already having a lawful consenting conversation with them. You just ask them, hey, are you from the United States of America? I'll tell you what. You go to some place like Greece or Italy or France or Germany, and a nice white boy like myself walking down the street, if I have an interaction with a police officer and I talk to them in an American accent, you guarantee they're going to ask, oh, what is your business in France? What is your business in Germany? Now, Judd continued by saying, we're not suggesting that people gather up at Home Depots or Lowe's and target people. I might be. I don't have any problem with it. We're not suggesting they go into agricultural fields or work sites. Why not? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We have some ideas of where these people might be. Let's get on the ball, gentlemen. But state law does require all county sheriffs to enter 287G agreements. But according to the FDLE, some counties are doing the bare minimum. Broward County, as an example, one of the most corrupt in the state. They have an active operational agreement, but out of those 1,745 deputies who are employed there, only 2 are designated immigration officers, and the agency has not participated in monthly reporting. It's quite clear that they just want to go through the motions. Now, the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, they've got an agency with 543 officers. They currently don't even have a 287G agreement with ICE. And of the 9,026 designated immigration officers in the state, only 17 are police officers. That is a shame. Florida, do better. Anthony Coker, he's the director of the State Immigration Enforcement Council, and he said grants for immigration enforcement will not be given to law enforcement agencies that do not enter into 287G agreements or do not report data currently to the state. So yes, I need to go into state government down here in Florida. I would have so much fun, let me tell you. The State Board of Immigration Enforcement has approved approximately $148 million in funds to local law enforcement to assist with federal immigration enforcement. About $13.6 million of that has already been dispersed to 34 agencies. That's according to a group called Transparency Florida. This is a state website we have down here that tracks government spending. So it's time. You know what they say, shit or get off the pot. Start arresting the illegal aliens or go ahead and move to a Democrat state. Now, I mentioned or we reported recently that President Trump had chosen his new nominee for ICE. Did you guys know that it's been a long time since a Senate-confirmed ICE agency head has been working at the agency? They've just had a continuing revolving door of temporary appointments. It's kind of crazy, but a lot of people are worried about President Trump's choice. Now, it seems to be a sort of unusual choice. Unusual in that this person has not handled or run an organization as large as ICE and also hasn't worked in federal government. Personally, I think that this is a good choice because of that. A lot of people were worried about President Trump because he had never held elected office before. And he turned out to be the greatest president we've ever had here in the United States. So Lance Schroyer is a former Oklahoma State trooper. And Lance, as the director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, seems like he's perfect for those reasons I mentioned, also because he's a former law enforcement officer. Now, he's being publicly praised by politicians, but then behind closed doors, they're saying something totally different. This is like, speaking out of the left side of their mouth so that they can go badmouth him behind closed doors. They don't want President Trump to know that they're worried, okay? Now, you've got several current and former federal officials who are familiar with Schroyer's background, and he also apparently has ties to Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin. And so do these people who are speaking to the Washington Examiner. They're saying his nomination is a mistake and that it may do more to hurt Trump's immigration agenda than to help it. Personally, the reason I like the idea of having an outsider, the reason I like the idea of having somebody come in who is not going to be influenced by the federal bureaucracy is because we need somebody who's going to go hard in the paint. And I think that somebody who is not already supplanting themselves to the DC elite, I think that that's exactly what we need. But these administration officials, and again, these are totally anonymous, so I don't know what their politics are. I don't know how they actually do support America First agenda. They're saying, I think it's a mistake. He's never been a supervisor. He's never been a boss. He never had a budget, never worked with foreign partners. He's only been a trooper. This could set things back. It can send things off the rails. It could be a new guy trying to show off and do his thing. Senior leaders could say F it and leave or retire. Now, let me also say this. ICE is a big agency, okay? There's a lot of people that work there. And of course, as the head of ICE, he's going to have all of these various roles that he's going to have to play, but he's also going to have a lot of people that he can rely on to help him fill in the gaps. I'll tell you what, there's only one thing at ICE that I care about. Have they hired enough people to arrest illegals? That's all I care about. Are they deploying them to arrest illegals? Is ICE putting handcuffs on people? Are they taking illegals off the street and shipping them out of the United States of America? All I care about. I don't care about the politics of the job. I don't care if he's there to make friends or not. He shouldn't be. Don't be making friends with those people in Washington, D.C., Lance. I'm going to tell you, they're going to stab you in the back as quick as you get there. Now, of course, because this is an Oklahoma boy, the Oklahoma governor, senators, and a number of other Trump administration officials with ties to Oklahoma, they are saying publicly, hey, Lance is a good pick. But then others are still kind of trying to muddy the waters because of his lack of managerial experience, because he's got personal ties to Mullin. But for me, again, the inexperience in a federal position, I don't think that makes him a liability. I think that makes him an asset. Somebody who comes from the swamp is not going to drain the swamp. So let's learn a little bit more about Schroyer. He worked in local and state law enforcement since 1997. He's a cop. He knows how to police. And that included the Tulsa Police Department. And then he joined the Oklahoma Highway Patrol back in 2000. Prior to his current role, he served as a major at the Oklahoma Department of Public Safety over the Emergency Services Unit. In that capacity, he directed the operational activity of at least 8 discrete specialized units that were tasked with recovering abducted children. Wow, maybe that's why they're nervous about him coming in. Disaster response, civil disturbance, that's definitely a skill that you're going to need running ICE, especially in this modern trans-Tifa age. Immigration enforcement, dignitary protection, and threat assessment and rapid response. Now, when President Trump had announced him, he said decades of experience locking up the worst of the worst, including he spearheaded the 287G law enforcement partnerships with ICE. So Mr. Schroyer has already got experience working with the agency. Now, Schroyer was described by DHS as a state employee who worked on partnerships with federal immigration officials last year under that program. And as it does down in Florida, it does the same thing in Oklahoma. It gives ICE the authority to delegate specific immigration officer duties to state and local police. Counties and states can both opt in at their discretion, and they've done so at extraordinarily high rates since President Trump came back, which is one of the reasons why we've had so many more illegal immigrant encounters. Now, two sources who described Schroyer as a state trooper who met Mullen while he was detailed to provide security at the former Oklahoma senator's house kind of gives you an indication as to why President Trump might have chosen him. I'm sure Mullen came in, and then when President Trump said, hey, I need a new ICE leader, and Mullen's like, hey, I got my boy. He's the man. He's the one to do it. DHS confirmed that Schroyer was assigned to a state police security detail for Mark Mullen. He is the secretary's good buddy. I think that that's wonderful. You need some cohesion among those agencies. And as secretary since March, Mullen hired Schroyer and he put him in a new role. Schroyer has been seen traveling with Mullen. He's been carrying his briefcase, I guess, before Schroyer was abruptly promoted to senior advisor at DHS. And then a second person described Schroyer as Mullen's tag-along on official travel. Maybe Mullen has Schroyer coming along with him so that he can get a feel for what the job entails when you are running a big agency like that. You know, I mean, obviously the Oklahoma State Police is a good-sized agency, but it's nowhere near the size of ICE, I would imagine. And yeah, so it's been more than 9 years since ICE has had a Senate-confirmed director. That was since the end of the Obama administration, which is totally nuts. Anyways, David Venturella, who's a longtime friend of the border czar Tom Homan, was temporarily moved into that position, and now he's going to be going to do something else. So, long story short, I think that the concern about Schroyer is coming from elements within the government who are maybe deep state, certainly DC acolytes, potentially narcissistic types who care about their own power. Maybe the people who are commenting to the Examiner believe that they should have had the position. I don't know. But I think that undoubtedly the Senate confirmation process will be interesting. Darla says, good evening, Zach and Lisa. I hope you have a fun and safe 4th of July weekend. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it's the 4th of July this weekend. I didn't even realize it, even though I know it, like, you know, intrinsically it's there in the back of my mind. I just wasn't thinking about it. We have a whole bunch of mortars to go launch off, so that's going to be fun. All right. Now, thank you also to Lee Walden, who says, Zach, please set up shorts of your rants and your oratory. You have tremendous words of wisdom, and the world deserves to hear it. If I had a way, I would have a seat at the table of Dan Scavino. So making shorts takes a tremendous amount of time, and I never know when to, like, you know, like just from my show, I don't know, like, the timestamps. I've asked Lisa before to perhaps write down timestamps. If you guys would do that, like, you know, give me a timestamp from when the show began until the point at which you think a short should be made, you can send it to me, and then I can kind of queue it up using StreamYard, or I can even do it within Rumble Studio. But it takes a lot of time, and so I've kind of got like an automated process coming from StreamYard. The other thing is taking my words and condensing them into a 30 to 90 second clip. I tend to talk a lot, and I realize that. That's why the show is 2.5 hours long. But what I really need is somebody who wants to donate that time to me, because I simply just don't have the budget to pay somebody. I looked into trying to hire somebody to do it, and it would be like a couple of $1,000s a month to basically have like 4 shorts a month made for me, which is, it's not a lot. And yeah, so I don't know if anybody out there has the skills and they want to do that. I would so appreciate it. It would be really, really awesome. All right, continuing on with ICE and immigration. We just had a big raid with ICE and Homeland Security investigations at a factory in Alabama, apparently multiple factories in Alabama. There were over 30 illegal aliens that were arrested. This one, I believe, was because they found them through the use of their stealing American identities. Now, this actually, over the last couple of days, we've had a number of these busts, and one of them was down here in Florida as well.
Today, officials say federal search warrants were executed as part of an investigation into allegations of identity fraud and unlawful employment practices at the Scholar Craft locations. That's a company that manufactures school furniture. According to HSI Birmingham, ICE agents arrested more than 30 illegal aliens pending further immigration proceedings. Officials say the investigation is still ongoing. Today, officials say federal search warrants were executed as part of an investigation into allegations of identity.
Oh, I just forgot. I need to thank Lewis and I believe Mary as well. Lisa, would you bring me those checks? Because I'm pretty sure that Mary was the other one. Mary has recently started donating $50 a month through a check in the mail, and Lewis has been donating $10 a month for years. And bring me checks. I forgot to bring them into the office with me so that I could thank them properly. Let me see. Also, Snowcat Operator, good to see you this past weekend at Deadwood, my friend. You and Leah are always a pleasure. That was the first time I've ever seen you with a hat off, and you have a lot of hair. I'm surprised you wear that hat all the time. Let's see. Weeb Patriot, congratulations. Diane Laporte Clump, congratulations. Zillow on my pillow, congratulations. Patrick Manuel, 62, congratulations. And Foxy Bubba, 18, congratulations. You guys have all been gifted subscriptions to the Rumble channel, which also allows you to join any of my premium streams on the weekend if I play video games and anything else that I do. Yeah, Margaret. Sorry, Maggie, not Mary. Sorry about that. Sorry, Margaret. All right. I need to put you and Lewis on a calendar in here so that I can just make sure that I don't miss it again. But Margaret, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Principal Enigma also said, is there a possibility you might be interviewing the people at Brightcore again? You have my resume and phone number from a couple of years ago. Call me regarding the shorts. So listen, if you want to do it, anybody can download my video file from the Rumble channel. Like, I mean, you just download the video file, make a short, make it between 30 and 60 seconds, send it on over to me, and I'll publish it. That's all that is required. And if you guys want to do that, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate it. Okay, so we've got that happening in Alabama. And then, of course, right next door in Florida, we also had a huge ICE raid yesterday. And apparently the HSI and Homeland Security investigations and ICE have now announced that they are going to be going after the business that was hiring them. Much like in Alabama, this was another situation where they had illegal aliens that were stealing American identities. So this is right here at Florida State. Is it Florida State University, I think? So it appears to be a construction company. This is quite honestly the place that I usually see illegal aliens working down here. And it plays into the clips that we saw yesterday of construction and landscaping trucks being abandoned all over the United States. I was jokingly saying, like, I just take that truck. They're not going to need it anymore. But obviously that wouldn't be legal. But I think it would be really cool if the government had some type of a program where they could seize all of that property from illegal aliens and then, do some kind of an auction. If we had a government-sponsored ICE property auction where anything that was forfeited by illegal aliens could then be sold to citizens of the United States of America. No corporations, no companies, just, good materials, good tools, good property, good homes at a great price. Because, if they sell it on the open market, then, of course, the price is probably going to go out of control. It'll be inflated. But they could reward the citizens of America by selling it to them at a significant discount and then perhaps giving us the benefit of being able to take advantage of this stuff. Now, somebody said that it's muted over there on YouTube. It's not muted. It's definitely not muted. There was, really no audio there. Oh, what about Brightcore? Brightcore hasn't reached out to me for another interview. Sorry about that. I forgot to answer that question. But yeah, Brightcore hasn't reached out to me for another interview. So if it's going to happen, I will let you know. All right. Now, this is an interesting piece because first we had the Treasury and the FinCEN and DOJ investigation into Hassan Piker after he and that group of leftist Antifa types went down to Cuba. Then we had the announcement of the investigation into Neville Roy Singham, who is arguably the largest funder outside of George Soros for these commie 501c3 organizations here in the United States. Now we have an announcement from Marco Rubio, the legal status of one of these Cuban communist influencers who is associated with Hassan Piker has just been taken into custody, both them and their family. So this was a revocation of the legal status of this Cuban commie influence operative. The federal agents took the man, his wife, and their son into custody, and they are preparing to remove them from the United States of America. This apparently was enough of a national security concern that they figured they needed to get this guy and get rid of him. Now, according to the State Department, Carlos Antonio Loga Dominguez, who is a Cuban national who has spent more than a decade working as a foreign subversive, that is their words, for the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the People, also known as ICAP. This is the premier influence and intelligence front that operates on behalf of the Cuban government, and they operate openly here on American soil. But he and his whole family is now in the custody of the State Department. So all three of them are in immigration custody pending their removal from the United States. The State Department announced this action yesterday after Marco Rubio personally terminated their legal status. This is a pretty based thing for him to do. I love it. Now, this is the official announcement coming from the State Department. This week, 3 Cuban nationals were apprehended by federal agents following Secretary Rubio's termination of their legal status. Carlos Antonio Loga Dominguez, who spent more than a decade working as a foreign subversive for the communist Cuban regime's premier influence and intelligence front group in the United States, and his wife and his son are now in custody pending removal. Dominguez spent more than a decade employed by the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the People. He has continued to maintain ties to the transnational communist subversion network throughout his time residing in our nation. ICAP, which Secretary Rubio designated for sanctions under Executive Order 14404 earlier this month, is the central node in a sprawling Cuban intelligence and influence operation, claiming to span more than 2,000 organizations across more than 150 countries. Now, the organization has a long and intimate relationship with Cuban intelligence agents. In fact, ICAP's current president, Fernando González Lort, is a convicted Cuban spy who served 15 years in U.S. prison for his role in the infamous WASP network. This was a massive illegal Cuban spy ring that was discovered in Florida in the late 1990s. I think that they made a movie about this. I feel like I saw a preview for a movie, but I've never actually watched it. So working in close coordination with the communist regime of Cuba, ICAP maintains an outsized footprint across the United States, trafficking in vile anti-American propaganda, cultivating pro-Havana regime activists and politicians, and lobbying federal, state, and local politicians on behalf of the Cuban dictatorship. The organization facilitates close working relationships between Havana and radical U.S. groups, using America's far-left milieu as a vehicle to export Cuba's communist revolution to the United States. Under the Trump administration, America will never become home for Cuban communist regime thugs who peddle propaganda, run foreign influence operations, or seek to wage revolution against American civilization. As a reminder, pursuant to Executive Order 14404, all ICAP property and interests in property are blocked, and any transactions with ICAP are prohibited absent an express authorization by the Departments of State or Treasury. Any foreign aliens involved in ICAP's anti-American subversion operations should expect to soon find themselves on an ICE deportation flight. Boom. Gotta love it. So let's see if we've got a picture of this young man. No, it doesn't look like they included it. But maybe they do on the State Department website. Let's take a look. All right, accepting cookies. Nope, they don't include it. Anyways, I'm not familiar with many of the people associated with Hassan Piker, but it appears to me that the net is closing in on the commie influence operatives that have been openly doing their thing here in the United States. Now, I thought this was hilarious. Apparently, CNN had a panel last week where they were discussing the rise of the Democratic Socialists of America. These are the commie candidates that are taking over the Democrat Party currently. And Caitlin Collins said that DSA members are not communists. You know, as they are tending to do, these people use very narrow interpretations of language to sort of massage the meaning of words. Socialism is an extension of communism. They may be two different words, but they achieve the same effect. And what's even more is that the current leader of the DSA is on record on a Zoom call saying that the goal of the DSA is to implement communism here in the United States. So this week, we had another CNN host openly wondering just why it is that Republicans, or maybe it's better to say sane and sensible Americans, are calling members of the DSA communists. Now, I think that these people are disingenuous. I don't truly believe that they are that stupid. I think most likely these people are socialists or communists themselves. But just in the interest of giving them the benefit of the doubt, in this clip, we have Audie Cornish saying that Republicans are skipping over criticism of socialism and going right to communism because, again, the DSA has openly said that their goal is communism. Let's take a listen.
Talking about this, talking about the threat of communism, explaining about how Democrats are going to try and offer you free stuff, and that might sound good for a couple years.
Do you think it's weird they're skipping straight to communism? Like, I just want to show positive opinions of socialism. In 2010, yes, there's movement from Democrats. Democrats now view socialism more favorably. But Americans in general don't.
Hold on, let's take a look. In 2010, 50% of Democrats viewed socialism favorably. 36% of all Americans viewed socialism favorably. Now in 2025, 39% of Americans view socialism favorably, and 66% of Democrats view socialism favorably. It's no wonder they're winning at fake elections.
Don't view it all that much better than they did in 2010. Right. And I just wonder why you can't just critique socialism as is and you have to go straight to communism.
Communism's much more, if you're just branding, and you know this as a communicator for campaigns, it's much easier to understand.
Scarier to go straight back to the 50s. Yeah. Love it. Okay.
Yeah. These people are retarded. I mean, give me the yerba mate. Yeah. Thank you, babe. Thank you. Okay. So I think that everybody here would agree that Soviet Russia was a communist dictatorship, right? But the official name for the Soviet Union was the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Nobody would argue that they were communists. They were communists and they were socialists. It's all the same shit. So here is that guy, the leader of the DSA. His name is David Jenkins. This is only 3 seconds, but he says it. Our goal is communism.
I mean, our goal is liberation. Our goal is communism. I mean, our goal is liberation. Our goal is communism.
All right. So I tend to believe these people when they tell you so overtly exactly what their goal is. So to call them communists, it is absolutely spot on. Now, here's an example of some of those communists. Antifa. Last week, 2 judges who sentenced this group of terrorists to a variety of terms. These are the people who were sentenced for their terrorist attack on the ICE facility in Texas. They got 30, 50, even 100 years in federal prison. Now, the media was, CNN among them, desperately trying to reframe this attack merely as a protest gone bad. But obviously, you could see the video. They ended up releasing it. And let's not forget, these trans-Tifa commie activists actually shot an ICE agent in the neck. So now Antifa are openly threatening the judges on social media. And I guess a couple more of them were sentenced. I believe the total number is 15 now who have been sentenced. And one of these trans-Tifa commie activists who was sentenced, I guess, tried to off themselves before they could be taken into custody or before they could be brought to the jail. So here is Andy No with the sauce, the receipts. And you can see here on Blue Sky, they're posting about these judges. The name of the account is Compost Billionaires. That is an overt call for the murder of these judges. And he says, anyone know where this judge lives? No reason, just asking. And then another one. So when are we burning it all down? He has an address. So it's pretty obvious exactly what they're hoping to do. Andy goes on to say far-left extremists are making violent death threats against 2 federal judges after they handed down long prison sentences to convicted members of a North Texas Antifa terror cell. The threats followed last week's first batch of sentencing, where 8 convicts received prison terms from 30 to 100 years after becoming the first defendants convicted in a federal Antifa terrorism case in U.S. history. The threats are being directed at U.S. District Judge Mark T. Pittman, Chief U.S. Judge Reed O'Connor. Many of the threats were responses to updates on social media platform Blue Sky from the DFW Support Committee. This is a far-left group that has been organizing support and cash donations for the defendants. So when are we burning it all down? He has an address. These people don't seem to understand what they are dealing with here. I mean, these death threats against a federal judge, it could put them in prison for a length of time. Maybe that's exactly where they want to go. Now, here is Andy No referring to those latest sentences that we just received for these people.
This is independent journalist Andy No, author of the New York Times bestseller Unmasked. In my new report that's been published on my Substack, No Comment, I take you inside the Fort Worth, Texas federal courthouse, where earlier today the second batch of convicted North Texas Antifa terrorists were sentenced. You may remember that last week 8 of their co-defendants were collectively sentenced to a total of 450 years in federal prison, with sentences individually ranging between 30 years to 100 years. This week, most of those who were being sentenced were those who took plea deals, and justice did not go easy on them. They still face years in federal prison, and there was crying in the courtroom.
I wish they had video of this. No cameras in federal courtroom. I will forever lament that fact, because I would have loved to have seen these people fall apart when they learned that they were essentially going to spend the rest of their lives in prison because they're dumb.
And there were some who showed contrition and apologized, particularly the ones who cooperated with the prosecution and flipped and testified during trial to help convict their comrades.
I would also love to see what's going to happen to those people. Even if they flipped, they're still going to spend some time in prison, and they're also probably going to be marked as soon as they get in there. They're not going to have any friends. Certainly the people they testified against are not going to want to go easy on them, and they're also going to be excised from their Antifa community out here in the real world.
Now, the reactions from Antifa are to be expected. For months now, they've been threatening violence against their former comrades who agreed to plead guilty
Yes.
and to provide evidence to the prosecution and to testify. And they've also, since last week, been issuing death threats to the 2 federal Texas judges who are responsible for the sentencing.
I mean, if I was a prosecutor there, I would be right on that. I would be all over it like flies on shit. Let's get a subpoena. Let's determine the identities of the people making these death threats. Let's arrest them. Let's put them in prison. No mercy for Antifa.
There's still one more convicted Antifa cell member to be sentenced next week. And there was also something really dramatic that happened, which I exclusively revealed in my report ahead of sentencing. One of the convicts had allegedly attempted to delete herself whilst in custody in Wichita, Texas. So you can read all about what happened in my report, linked below. Please subscribe to support.
Yeah, snitches get stitches. I don't know that these people have the stomach to dispatch with their enemies on the inside. I tend to believe that most of these people, perhaps with the exception of this brute here in the center, he looks like he's going to be right at home in prison. But all of these other people, they're going to be somebody's bitch. You better believe it. They are all going to be used and abused as soon as they get in. And a couple of them will probably be more popular than others. All right. Now, I need to get past that. All right, real quick, before we continue with the next segment of the program, I have a quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, I know you hear a lot about crypto. I love talking about crypto. Crypto is big. It's everywhere. You need to know the ins and outs of crypto as we move into this next phase of the golden age. But there is a big part about crypto that a lot of people miss, and I think it keeps them misinformed. Crypto was created so that you, the individual, could own and control your own money. Digital sovereignty. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. Instead of a bank holding on to your money and deciding when you could have access to it, delaying transfers, limiting how much you could pull out, it puts you in total control. And if you've ever been in a situation where you had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt this problem, you know what I'm talking about. So fast forward to today, and everybody's heard about crypto, but getting started might seem complicated. And that's why I love and use Rumble Wallet. It takes all the complexity out of it. It makes it very simple. You choose what you want to work with, whether it's Bitcoin or dollar-backed stablecoins or even digital gold that's backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly with MoonPay. Then you use your credit card, your debit card, or your bank account, and you're up and running in just a few minutes. And then once you get set up, you can even support your favorite creators like me or anybody else who streams on Rumble directly. And when you do support using Rumble Wallet, all of that donation goes directly to that creator. So if you do this right now, scan that QR code you see on screen, or just click the link in the description or in the chat, or head on over directly to wallet.rumble.com. And from there, you set it up, you tap buy, and you're in the game. And then just a few minutes later, you go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you so much to Rumble Wallet. Okay. And let me also say, I want to, is my Pilled stream not updating? Hang on just a sec. Nope, it is updating. Okay. All right. Now, continuing on with the Trans-Tifa terror that we are experiencing here in the United States. In Las Vegas, a man living as a woman was just arrested pretty dramatically for planning what appeared to be a massacre at a Las Vegas casino. So police in Vegas have arrested a man who identifies as a woman who had allegedly planned to carry out a massacre in this casino using a cache of weapons. This is a twisted story. It gets difficult to understand what's going on because the defendant's name is Allison Howlett. He is 36. He has been identified as a woman in all of the mainstream media reporting, but he's charged with making terroristic threats, assault with a deadly weapon, auto theft, gun theft, and other offenses. What makes it even more complicated is because they say Allison, they call him her, and then they blur out his face in all of the videos. So, you know, you can't tell exactly what you're talking about, further muddying the waters. And then Howlett has a spouse as well. Now, Just the News identifies the spouse as a woman, but it turns out his spouse is also a male to female transgender individual. Now, the spouse called the police on Saturday to say that Howlett stole their car. The spouse told the police that there were numerous firearms in the car. Wait until you learn how those firearms got in the car. And then Howlett's ex-wife, which is another male to female transgender, said that he intended to commit suicide by cop or to carry out some kind of a mass shooting. So police ended up tracking the spouse's, they used the spouse's phone to track the stolen car, which led them to a parking garage at the Sunset Station Hotel. And the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police showed pictures and videos of the arrest. There is some body camera footage that was handed out. When you look at all of the guns that were in the car, the first thing I thought was, holy shit, like, how did this individual get access to all of these guns? We're talking, you know, like fully restricted, fully automatic weapons that are not just the kind that you can buy. I mean, you've got to have some connections or a lot of money to be able to get them. There were like 30 firearms that were found in the car. And normally in a situation like this, mainstream media would take the opportunity to make an argument for gun control. But there seems to be, oh, dang it. Hold on just a second. I got to log in to see this garbage. Obviously, there seems to be an effort by the mainstream media to support. Oh, great. Okay, I guess I can't log in. What the heck? Okay. Well, I guess no worries. I'll find a different way to look at this. But they want trans people to have guns so that they can go to war with everybody else. Now, first of all, BX, my good friend, who was just interviewed by Chris Hansen, you guys. Pretty cool for her. Congratulations, BX. The spouse is named Julia. Now, Julia claims to be a firearms dealer, which is how he had all of those weapons. Even as a firearms dealer, it's unusual to have all of those weapons and just keep them in your car. That's kind of crazy. I've got a lot of guns. If I'm going to be traveling, I might take a weapon with me. But to have this collection of this many awesome guns and just like keep them in your car, it's not very smart. So I don't know that I believe Julie. Anyways, Julie called 911 on Allison because he threatened to commit suicide by cop. Julie claims Allison had been threatening to do this mass shooting since at least 2024. And there have been multiple altercations where Allison had like grabbed a gun and pointed it at himself or at Julie and then made the threat. And I guess Henderson police have also been out to the house on multiple occasions, at least 4 times. All right. There was one arrest report that said Allison told Julie, if the FBI doesn't come arrest me, there is going to be a mass shooting one day. You're going to be the reason hundreds of people lose their lives. That was a threat that was made in January of 2024, guys. So over 2 years ago, this person made this overt threat. Now, in a manner of speaking, okay, well, let me say this. Anybody who commits a shooting, that's on them. Has nothing to do with a gun, has nothing to do with anybody else. But Julie, what the hell? Why are you with this person? Why are you giving them access to all of your weapons? It seems that if a shooting had been committed, I would think that Julie could be held responsible for it because he would have a responsibility as a firearms dealer to keep those weapons safeguarded so that they don't just end up in the hands of somebody who very clearly has some serious mental issues. So Allison was placed on legal mental health hold just a few days ago. And still, even though there was a 5150 for Allison, the police did nothing about it, left him living at the house where he and this Julie were living. And apparently, they are both radical transgender extremists. They've been stockpiling weapons and posting online about killing cops and revolting against our anti-trans government for some time. Now, apparently, the media in this, you can listen to this, the media is giving Julie the opportunity to sort of absolve himself and say that, oh, I was trying to warn the police for the longest time. But again, you've known about these threats for years. You gave a crazy person access to, high-powered weapons, okay, that not just anybody has, and that through your... How is it that they even let this dude become a firearms dealer in the first place. I mean, you got to apply to the ATF. You've got to go through this whole thing. Like, this makes me even more confident that I can get my Form 7 all taken care of. And I want to become a firearms dealer. Like, I believe that that is the next phase of my life. That's what I need to be doing. But take a listen to this.
She came in with a gun, so she had pulled the trigger. She was literally going to kill me.
And
she took off. I ran outside. I had the gun still in my hand. I had unloaded it. And I was shouting as I was going down the driveway, "No, you can't leave. You can't do this." And then I ran back inside and called the police.
Julie told police Allison took off in Julie's car that was full of guns and called 911. Police say officers tracked the car to the park.
Now look at this. Why? This person was likely going to be a shooter, right? You know, if this was a white dude, believe you me, if this was a white dude, they never would have blurred this dude's face out. But because it's a troon, they're blurring it out because they want to tell you that Allison is a woman.
Garage, and Howlett refused to get out. She was eventually tased and taken into custody. Police say
they also don't play the audio, and if you listen to the audio, it's pretty obvious.
She was sitting on top of a gun. The guns that police found, were they your guns or Allison's guns?
They were my guns.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay, so the ATF should strip this dude of his license to own, not to own, but to transfer these guns. This is obviously not somebody who's responsible. This is like you own a storefront, you sell machine guns, and you just have them laid out on the counter, and you go home for the night and you leave the door open, and a bunch of gangbangers come in and steal all your guns. Oops. Oops.
Last report said 22 of the guns found in the car belonged to Julie. Julie tells me she's a gun dealer and was in the midst of transporting the guns out of state, which is why her car was packed.
Now, where were these guns going? Out of state to whom? Was he going to be arming some type? Yeah, F the ATF. I know. F the ATF, but it's the ATF who has to approve these gun licenses. It makes me question who it was that approved it in the first place. I think the ATF should be abolished. Let me go on record. I've said it before. I will say it again. However, they're an agency that exists right now, and they've got dominion over this stuff. Where were these guns going? Who were these guns going to be transferred to?
However, Julie tells me Saturday was not the first time Allison made threats.
It's been going on for a very long time, and I have been calling and reporting, and just nothing was getting done.
Allison's arrest report says Henderson police were at their house just days before and put Allison on a legal 2000 hold for a mental evaluation. But her threats went back to 2024.
You're going to be the reason hundreds of people lose their life.
Henderson police confirmed to me they responded to the house 4 times, but did not say exactly which dates. Victoria Saha, Fox 5 News.
So yeah, Henderson PD probably showed up and they were like, we can't arrest him. He's a troon. We can't have the PR disaster of arresting this person who is, oh my gosh. I guess that the OP is a schizophrenic. Wow. Here's an interview with the person on YouTube.
Do you still grow facial hair?
No, I don't.
How do you not do it anymore? Did you nair your face?
No, I went and paid $1,000 to have it removed.
You have to be. Can I do that to all the hair on my head?
Okay. So this is a half-hour interview, and this was, it was only published 19 hours ago. I wonder when it was recorded. This is crazy. Hang on, I'm going to download this right now before it gets deleted by YouTube. Okay, come on, boy. Come on, boy. Let me get this downloaded real quick, guys. Okay, video is downloading in the background. Okay, so... well, this might be interesting to listen to off air. I'll let you guys know if there's anything in here that I should clip out, and we'll put it up. A mentally unstable trans person. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. That seems to be what we're dealing with most often. Here is, we actually do have a picture, but okay. So take a look. You've got all of these guns in the image right here. Couple of big ones. And again, several of them fully automatic, which is totally legal if you are a gun dealer. But, again, there is a level of responsibility there. The M2, that it would be $40,000 to $70,000 for a fully transferable automatic M2. The M203s as well. FAMAS, very few legally allowed in the U.S. So apparently there are less than 200 of them in the U.S. They are $25,000 and up for a semi-auto, which again begs the question, what does this person do? How are they able to afford all of these very expensive, awesome guns? I think that likely it would be a wonderful thing if a deeper level of investigation was done to see the inflow of money in and out of these dudes' accounts. Because if they are connected to, say, $40,000, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so when they essentially like outlawed the production of new machine guns, that instantly made fully automatic weapons very, very expensive. And of course, you have to purchase them with within the guidelines of the NFA, and you also have to be willing to pay for them. Most people are not willing to just part with them. If I was a firearms dealer, then I would have access to something like that, and that would be wicked cool. Now we have things like FRTs, which are not machine guns. It's very, very important to remember that FRTs are not machine guns, but they are the closest approximation to the experience of shooting a machine gun. Now, here is Allison during his arraignment, and this is not the only case in the last 24 hours. We have another one. Another trans Tifa activist also used to work for a Democratic campaign. They vowed to unleash a trans jihad against the GOP. And they posted this video where they urged their followers to kill your local Republican. This person is named Tiha Delaruel. Why do they have to have such weird names too? That's like not a name that exists in the world. Nobody would ever name their kid Tiha Delaruel. Anyways, so this video was uncovered by Minnesota independent journalist Dustin Grage. And in the video, Delaruel, who is a biological male pretending to be a female, sits right in front of a dry erase board that says, "Kill your local Republican." We're going to make this moderate position for the state of Wisconsin, Delaruel said while pointing at the message. So I guess they live in Wisconsin, but I need your help because we have 1 month to do this, so let's do it. And then there's a second video where he vows to unleash a trans jihad against MAGA. Just a reminder, we are doing trans jihad. It's about making the oppressor, the bigots, the animals that make up MAGA, for example, right? So for decades, everyone else, all the marginalized minorities, we've had to be the ones that walk down the streets with anxiety, with fear. But no more, no more, no more, no more, no more, folks. We're going to do the reverse. We're going to make it so that they will be the ones who have to walk down the streets in fear, anxiety, and worry. And we're not going to make this like, oh, they got to do this for a week or something when they get really scared. No, this is their new reality, and it's never going to change. Now, Grage later revealed that Delaruel, as a result of these videos, did get a visit from the local police, but he was in Milwaukee at the time to whine about ICE. And per the New York Post, Delaruel volunteered on the campaign of transgender Wisconsin Democratic Socialist Katrina DeVille. Katrina DeVille was another one who was put out a video basically calling for violence and deaths. And DeVille was quick to condemn Delaruel. He also had made an apology video, basically. I want to be clear that I do not accept or condone violence or threats towards anyone and do not encourage violent hate or threats of any kind. Now, DeVille also claimed Delaruel was on the campaign for a very short while, but was removed when it became apparent he was deeply troubled. And that is very, very obvious when you look at it. Here he is. Okay, this is him saying, "Kill your local Republican."
Hey, hey, T7 here, and we're going to make this the moderate position for the state of Wisconsin, but I need your help.
Oh, that song. Okay, and then here is the other one where he is, again, calling for a trans jihad.
T7T here, and just a reminder, we are doing Trans Jihad, and this is something everybody can actually kind of partake in a little bit here because it's about making the oppressor, the bigots, the animals that make up MAGA, for example, right? So for decades,
Oh, man, that poor boy. That poor boy. He's obviously very disturbed. Well, I would hope that the police in Wisconsin would take this seriously, but the truth of the matter is they probably won't. Now, BX had posted a critique of an article written by Rolling Stone not that long ago. Rolling Stone had this article where they did a profile of a transgender Second Amendment activist. Basically a guy who, and I don't even know, it could be a girl. I'm not sure because they never show their face, and I don't think they actually name them. But this person has essentially begun training people like this Tihad Delaruel, training them to be a trans hitman, essentially. And this is obviously something that we have seen taking on more and more prominence around the country as these acts of trans violence seem to become greater and greater more often. I truly think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing more overt actions by them taking place. Now, moving on from that, I think it's only fair that we talk about Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener is the guy who's recently been getting harassed by pro-Hamas leftist trans-Tifa types. And Scott Wiener is also the one who got the bill passed in California to make it totally legal for an adult to have a sexual relationship with a minor. He also was responsible for killing a bill that would have barred sex offenders from holding public office. And that includes from holding positions on school boards. I would imagine that anybody understands why you wouldn't want a pedophile or a sex offender to have a position of authority over children. But for California State Senator Scott Wiener, he seems to think that that is prejudiced, that is hateful to stop pedophiles from getting around kids. So on Tuesday, the Wiener Senate Elections and Constitutional Amendments Committee defeated Assembly Bill 2753 after the measure had literally sailed through the state assembly unanimously. If it wasn't for him, it would have ended up becoming law. It was authored by Assembly member Esmeralda Soria of Merced, and it would have ultimately prohibited anyone who was required to register as a sex offender under California's three-tier system from seeking or serving in state or local offices like city council, school board, or even the state legislature. So the legislation was introduced after a registered sex offender, Renee Campos, pleaded no contest in 2018 to a misdemeanor involving the possession of child abuse material. And then he announced a bid for the Fresno City Council. We reported on that at the time. Now, Soria had promised her constituents she would act to prevent sex offenders from running for office. It's deeply disturbing that this issue is unfolding in my own backyard, she said. The idea that a registered sex offender could run for public office in the city of Fresno is unacceptable. And she made that statement when she announced that she was putting this bill forth. This bill will ensure once and for all that registered sex offenders are prohibited from seeking public office in California, so voters can have confidence that those seeking to represent them meet the most basic standards of public trust. Now, because Wiener is the chair of the committee and he opposed the bill, he said he would only support it if they amended it to apply solely to lifetime Tier 3 registrants, and Soria refused to accept that change, so the bill was killed. Eric Daughtry posted a video from the proceedings, and he wrote that Wiener said the bill was dangerous because the crimes aren't a huge deal, and that some people just have flaws. Man, you know, every time I hear about what Scott Wiener is doing in state government, it makes me think that maybe he might have the propensity to be a sex offender himself. Who knows?
California lawmakers today killed a bill that would have prevented registered sex offenders from running for public office. Earlier this year, a registered sex offender, Renee Campos, tried to run for Fresno City Council.
Well, today lawmakers had a larger debate over what kind of criminals should be blocked from running for offices at the state and local level. KCRA3 Political Director Ashley Zavala explains what happened.
Democrats here at the state capitol are divided over whether people convicted of sex crimes should be allowed to run for public office.
No, they shouldn't. This should be a federal law.
But with today's action, people who are registered sex offenders or people who have been convicted of serious child sex crimes can still run for city council.
Oh, yeah. Alias. Good catch, man. Yes. Scott Wiener is also the one who made it legal for you to give AIDS to somebody and not tell them.
School board or the state legislature here in California. So the bill killed today, AB 2753, would block anyone that has been registered as a sex offender from running for office. California has a 3-tiered sex offender registration system. Tier 1 is up to 10 years on the list. Tier 2 is 20 years, and Tier 3 is for life. The chairman of the Senate Elections Committee, Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener, was worried about casting a wide net and would only pass this bill if it only applied to sex offenders in Tier 3. The lawmaker who wrote this bill, Assemblymember Esmeralda Soria, refused to take that amendment, and the bill died in essentially a tie vote. Here's what Soria had to say after.
You know, in the way that leftists are following this guy on the street and calling him a war criminal and a Zionist, I think that people who care about kids should be following him around and asking him why he keeps supporting putting children in dangerous situations with known abusers. Why would he want to make it possible for people who would take advantage of a child to have the opportunity to do that? I mean, I can think of a couple of reasons, but I think that somebody should be confronting him with this.
Extremely disappointed, and I feel like I'm still trying to process what we just, saw.
And she's a Democrat. This would have been unanimously passed, Democrats and Republicans alike. The only person who thought it was a bad idea was Scott Wiener. I wonder why, Scott.
I'll come out of Senate Elections Committee, but I think the fight still continues. I made a promise to my community that we would try to make sure that what happened earlier in this year when Mr. Renee Campos decided to announce that he was going to run for office, a registered sex offender, that we wouldn't see that type of...
And if you'll remember, Renee Campos held a press conference across the street from an elementary school. He intentionally had the cameras pointed in the direction of the elementary school while he was talking about how he was going to become a city council member. I mean, that guy knew exactly what he was doing. I think that he got off on the idea that he could potentially become a city councilman. And then, of course, that would give him access.
Things happening in our community, and so we'll continue this fight here in Sacramento to make sure that it is loud and clear that the community supports our efforts to ensure that no registered sex offender is able to run or get elected in state and local office.
Lawmakers in that same committee did move forward with another bill prohibiting people convicted of felony sex crimes from running for office, but mainly if the victims are adults. I'm told the committee watered this bill down so that people convicted of felony child sex crimes like rape can still run for office. Again, that includes school board, city council, and to be a state lawmaker, just to name a few public offices.
So if you rape an adult, then you are not able to run for office now once this fully passes. But they protected child sex offenders. That is just so disturbing.
Democratic Assemblymember Dawn Addis is the lawmaker who wrote this proposal, and she accepted those changes from this committee. Here's what she had to say.
We also have a criminal justice system, and folks do go through, punishment and justice through that system. And we didn't want to unintentionally wrap in what's commonly known as Romeo and Juliet kinds of situations into this elections bill. And that's really about younger people. You might be a 17-year-old and you're dating someone, you turn 18, you become an adult, you're still dating that person. and there's, things that may happen under the criminal justice system that we just certainly didn't want to unintentionally wrap into this bill.
Okay, so I understand that. I absolutely understand that. But then why not make an explicit carve out for that? Why not write that into the law? And then you could make sure that people who are real pedos won't be able to hold office.
But I will re-emphasize, I still think more work needs to be done.
Now, lawmakers break for a month-long summer recess starting this Thursday. They come back for one more month of lawmaking for the year.
Scott Wiener is such a creep. Such a terrible person. Yeah. In 2020, Wiener authored SB 145, which is referred to as the Pedophile Protection Bill, and Gavin Newsom signed it into law, that gives judges discretion to remove certain sex offenders from the registry for consensual acts between a 14 to a 17-year-old and an adult no more than 10 years older. So 14 to 17, that's, a gray area. That could just be somebody in high school, two people, the heart wants what the heart wants. But if you're talking about a 14-year-old and a 23-year-old, that is obviously completely inappropriate. Earlier in 2017, Wiener also authored the bill that Alias mentioned, SB 239, which reduced the penalties for knowingly exposing others to HIV. They took it from a felony to a misdemeanor, so it's basically like a parking ticket now. You could basically kill somebody and nothing's going to happen to you. Anyways, don't forget, Wiener is running in Nancy Pelosi's now vacated seat. He wants to become the Democratic representative for California's 11th district. And in the June 2nd top two primary, he finished with roughly 40% of the vote. So he's now advancing on to the November general election. He will probably be the winner. However, maybe now he will not be the winner. He's running against San Francisco Supervisor Connie Chan. So we'll see how that works out for him. All right, you guys. Real quick, before we continue, I got a couple of thank yous I need to go through over here. Let me say thank you very much, first of all, to, many thank yous. You guys are very kind today. Thank you so much for the support. Okay, so, all right, go back here. To Lee Walden, he says, I claim Cuba in the name of America. Breitbart. What bada boom. So we will call Cuba Breitbart, or are you just saying Breitbart when you plant the flag on Cuba? And then Lee also says, commie rat bastards have always been here in the shadows. They are dug in like ticks. Got to eliminate by the root and stem and the rot that's deep in our nation. The enemy within time to exterminate the enemy. Amen, brother. Amen. Hold on, just getting this pulled up. Okay. And thank you to Principled Enigma. We need to remind Islam one of the major sins against the Holy Spirit is to call black and white and white, to call black white and white black. In other words, calling truth a lie and calling a lie the truth. Spiritual bankruptcy. Agoratos also says, a commie by any other name is still a commie. Democratic socialism at its base is oxymoronic. Thank you for what you do, brother. Thank you for that, and you are correct. Principled Enigma also says, it appears that those that are willing to mutilate themselves against God's plan for them end up infiltrated by demonic forces. Does the term demon in the flesh mean anything to anybody? Yes, this is absolutely the case. It's really unfortunate. I mean, when you start putting things into your system that aren't meant to be there, it can have devastating effects. But, of course, there's also the overt MK Ultra programming that's coming in from the outside as well. G. Fontez, he says, I'd like to buy the world a Diet Coke so we can all have a Diet Coke and smile, because at the end of the day, it's the real thing. Principled Enigma says, what I said about Islam also applies to the transgender community. And I've said it before, but it's worth saying again. Under the Constitution, we should be allowed to have a Bradley fighting vehicle as well as a 50 caliber machine gun if we can afford it. F the ATF. Yes, there should be no restrictions on the Second Amendment. I agree with you. And Personally, I would love to have. Mercedes made a bunch of cool military vehicles for use in Europe, and there's a couple of really cool ones that I've always thought would be awesome to buy and then convert it into a sort of a mobile home. Let's see. My Undivided Life. Happy 4th, Zach and Lisa. Have a fun 250 celebration. Thanks for your shows. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that $20 rant. Lee Walden also says, Zach, have you ever watched the movie Fallen? Absolutely. Fallen with Denzel Washington, where when the dark knight forces evil will pass through, innocent souls are captured and we mortals fail to see. Yes, it is such a good movie, you guys. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Jim Kyle also says, anyone who has sex with a child should be exterminated. I cannot argue that one. G. Fontes says a state trooper, particularly from a middle America state, is bound to have either direct or indirect experience of whom, how, and what all has or may have traveled the U.S. interstate highway system. Yes, I think undoubtedly Lance will, well, I mean, they've already told us he was running the 287G program. He was himself deputized as an ICE agent. And although I think people look at like middle America and they think, you know, the things that are happening in California or Florida are not, or Texas are not happening there. They absolutely are. There is a lot of human trafficking, drug trafficking, human smuggling that's going on. And oftentimes they are getting away with it because of the sort of desolate areas that exist throughout the Plain States. Also, Denise Ann says we also need to change the parameters of what a sex offender actually is, because there are some situations where people are labeled sex offenders where they aren't actually sex offenders. No, I totally agree with you. Like I said, with the, you know, a 14-year-old dating a 17-year-old, there's perhaps a maturity level difference there. But I mean, you know, that you're talking about somebody who might be a sophomore in high school versus a junior in high school. It is definitely there's a gray area, but you know, when you're talking about a 14-year-old with a 23-year-old or a 24-year-old, you know, obviously adults with a child, any of them should be considered sex offenders. Principal Enigma also says, will Wiener be in leather during any debates I must watch? I will probably end up making an AI-generated image of that. Okay. All right, you guys, before we continue with the next section of the show, I do have a brief message from the next sponsor, which is going to be my friends over there at Neutronics Labs. Neutronics Labs, they are the maker of Man's Edge. This is a testosterone booster. It is designed to help improve men with their health in a general sense, vitality, and your overall performance, whether you're talking about, you know, trying to feel better in bed, trying to get better performance at the gym, grow more muscle, boost your energy levels, support stamina. It provides optimal well-being for you and your body as you get older. It's just a fact of life. Men start to lose their vigor that they had when they were younger. Man's Edge is also loaded with IGF-1, 25,000 nanograms of IGF-1. It is a potent blend also of all natural ingredients like Tribulus terrestris, and it's got a bunch of other stuff like fenugreek, longjack, L-arginine, L-citrulline, and nitrous oxide. All of those things, if you were to take them on their own, it would be a major expense, but this is pretty much everything you need as a man. It also has a unique delivery system, liposomal. You just put it under the tongue, it soaks in, and then it gets to work in your body right away. So definitely check out neutronicslabs.com/redpill. You're automatically going to get 50% off if you sign up for the auto ship. That will just send it out to you every month automatically. They're also going to give you a free bottle of IGF-1 completely free. And when you use my code REDPILL, you're going to get an extra 10% off. Thank you very much to Neutronics Labs for supporting the program. neutronicslabs.com/redpill. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody for being here. All right, guys, big news. Yesterday, we learned that President Trump wants the acting DNI Bill Pulte to declassify everything. And I'm sure that every single one of you out there has got at least one thing that you're hoping will be declassified. Everybody has their favorite scandal or their favorite crime that's been committed by any number of deep state operatives over the course of the last 10, 20, 30 plus years. But for many of you, the stolen elections, the fake and gay elections, and in particular, the 2020 election in Fulton County is chief among all of them. So President Trump and the FBI have just directed a surge of resources to prioritize the investigation of the 2020 election in Fulton County. We've already got the voting machines. We've already got all the paperwork. They tried to stop the DNI and the DOJ and the FBI from investigating, and they lost. So now the FBI is surging those resources to take this investigation to prosecutions. It was a couple of months ago now that we learned that the FBI and the DOJ had also started going after election workers individually. Now, this information is coming from an unclassified internal memo that was issued by Kash Patel and the FBI yesterday. It was first reported by MS Now, and the Directorate of Intelligence and Criminal Division has requested that every FBI field office in the country immediately surge support to the FBI's Atlanta division to prioritize this investigation. So the memo specified personnel contributions from field offices scaled by office size, resulting in a total of 260 FBI intelligence officials that have now been assigned to this effort. It didn't specify numbers for FBI agents, but dozens are reported to currently be working on this investigation. And each intelligence analyst is expected to complete a total of 708 records checks by July 17th. They are paying overtime. They're giving weekends and holiday time that these people can come in and work. Everything is on the table. If you're an FBI agent, intelligence analyst, they want you there in Atlanta, and they want you working around the clock nonstop. In support of the Director's Office priority effort, the Directorate of Intelligence and Criminal Division are requesting all FBI field offices to immediately surge support to an FBI Atlanta priority investigation, the memo said. And FBI Director Kash Patel has ordered personnel from every field office in the country to participate. One U.S. official familiar with the matter described the focus of the analyst's work as, and I quote, "Looking for derogatory information is the short answer. The idea in the long form is to build a case. Look at associations between people. Look into their social media, their business activity, their travel, contact with other investigative subjects." Now, the FBI has been contacted for, had a request for comment on the story, but they're not speaking out loud about it. And I don't know how MS Now came into the possession of this memo. But the increase in personnel builds on all of those earlier examples of this investigation that we mentioned. I mean, in January, we had the search warrants executed at Fulton County. They took the election equipment and the election records from that storage facility. They got more than 600 boxes of records, all of it related to the 2020 election. We also learned that there were some boxes that were missing. If I'm not mistaken, there was supposed to be over 700 boxes of election-related material, and the quantity that was taken from the election warehouse was not the full quantity that they were expecting to find. So hopefully that would lead to somebody getting an indictment as well. But all of the materials were physical ballots, ballot images, voter rolls, and the tabulation materials. Now, it's also worth mentioning that the state of Georgia, under Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, are still doing everything in their power to stop the DHS, the FBI, and the DOJ from getting their hands on the qualified voter file, the voter records for the state of Georgia. I would imagine that that could potentially be subpoenaed, considering the fact that they're in the midst of this ongoing investigation. Now, of course, a judge might say, well, you're only investigating Fulton County, so you can have the voter rolls for Fulton County, but we're not going to give you the voter rolls for the entire state. It's poppycock, it's hogwash. They should just give them everything. Now, you also probably remember, because we've reported on it, Kurt Olson. Kurt Olson is now directly part of this investigation. He was hired by the Trump administration in 2025 in a mystery intelligence position. And then this year, he was transitioned to be specifically working on this investigation. Now, The reason the investigation started in the first place was because it was Kurt Olson who sent that referral over, and he was serving as a presidentially appointed White House official overseeing election integrity matters. The reason they didn't tell anybody what Kurt Olson was doing at the start was because they didn't want to give up the ghost and let everybody know that Kurt was working on the elections. And Kurt, if you don't know, he's been an election integrity, election security stalwart for a long time. He worked with Tina Peters on her legal case. He is one of the good lawyers, and he's also been a Navy SEAL, if I'm not mistaken. So a timeline that was released by the Department of Justice following this court order showed that it was Olson that sent this referral back in January. So the FBI assigned an Atlanta-based special agent to review the matter the following day, and it was 6 days later on January 14th that it became a full-fledged investigation. There was an investigative summary that was prepared shortly afterward, formed on the basis of that original search warrant and the affidavit that were both executed on January 28th. And in connection with that January search, the FBI said that agents were executing a court-authorized law enforcement action at Fulton County's Election Hub and Operations Center in Union City, Georgia. Justice Department officials have still stated they are not pursuing criminal investigations based on the whims of the president. This is about a lot more than just Donald Trump telling the DOJ to go after his political enemies. This is about solving the problem of fake elections here in the United States. Just because elections are manipulated doesn't mean that every election's outcome is not the outcome of the people. But anytime you have a problem with security, with the handling of ballots, with the quality of a voter file, you ultimately can't trust whatever that ultimate outcome is. We need to have 100% assurance that the elections that are held for us, the people of the United States of America, are free from influence, are free from any criminal actions. And we're not going to get that with the current system that we have. I mean, in Georgia, Joe Biden was crowned the winner after receiving 11,779 votes, more than Donald Trump. And that surge of ballots that came in were all as a result of the election rolls being totally dirty. And then, of course, unrestricted mail-in ballots with no chain of custody. So we have to get these things taken care of, and the quicker we can do it, the better. I was hoping that we would be there by now, but for whatever reason, the administration is working on the timeline that they are. Now, hold on. I think that we should next go to this article about Hillary Clinton, because as I stated in the introduction, Hillary Clinton has begun a media tour pretty much telling the deep state working within the intelligence community to actively refuse to share information with acting DNI Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte is the head of the DNI, is like the #1 person in the intelligence world for the United States. The DNI was created to be a clearinghouse for all of the information coming from every intelligence agency and to sort of keep everybody working together. You know, one of the reasons they said 9/11 happened was because you had all of these intelligence agencies that weren't sharing data. Kind of retarded. That's not why it happened, but, you know, I'll bite. Okay, let's go ahead and just say that that's the problem. In order for that information to be shared, it needs to be shared with a central location, which is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So Hillary Clinton, after Bill Pulte is told to declassify everything, appears on Democracy Docket. This is the podcast of Mark Elias, a former lawyer for Hillary Clinton, former attack dog lawyer for the DNC. And Elias asked Hillary Clinton what she thought about President Trump's decision to make Pulte the acting DNI after Tulsi Gabbard stepped away to take care of her husband. And Clinton said Pulte is dangerous, calling him a loose cannon because he has no experience in the intel community. Again, just like Lance at ICE, I think not having experience in the intel community is a plus for the American people and is a positive for President Trump. If he wants to bring somebody in a Scaramucci type position who can be a wrecking ball, who can be a bull in a china shop. You're going to want somebody who's not already controlled by the corrupt Washington, D.C. establishment. She went on to say the DNI has access to everything that they want to see. I mean, I hope there are career and even political appointees in various parts of the agencies that are slow walking or refusing to share information with Pulte. I guarantee you there are, and this is part of the major problems that we have continually experienced. President Trump went through it during his first term. They called it the resistance. And now here in his second term, you've got people who are still doing it, only more than just these political appointees and employees within the federal government and the intelligence agencies. You got the Senate doing the exact same thing. They are slow walking his they are slow walking his appointments, and they are also continually gaveling in when they're on break so that President Trump can't make recess appointments. Last week, Pulte fired over 50 deep state intel officials, and last Tuesday, CBS News reported that he had fired a handful of additional political appointees and intelligence staffers that were within a variety of different agencies. Now, Bill Pulte said last Tuesday, "Today I spent time with the National Counterterrorism Center team, who was doing an incredible job protecting our country under President Trump's leadership. The room was filled with true professionals and American patriots. It is a privilege to work beside them." He didn't say anything else about who it is that he's firing, and he hasn't made any specific announcements. But just as the so many people in the federal government seem to be so concerned about Bill Pulte coming in and declassifying, firing these people, there's a very specific reason why they are nervous about it. And I think that it's because they know that Bill Pulte may have something on his desk that is going to implicate some very powerful people in some very, very important investigations and criminal actions. So Hillary Clinton, quite literally, is telling the deep state to deep state. I guess that CNN even commented on it, and they said that the comment sounded a little deep statey. It definitely does. I mean, and take a look at this. I saw this come through on Rasmussen. So you have here a book called Stolen Elections by Ralph Pizzulo. And in this book, he writes, on Monday, July 21st of 2025, a draft Office of National Intelligence report to be sent to the president on an election fraud was forwarded to the DOJ for review. So this is a year ago now. An officer at the DOJ who had previously seen the whistleblower's findings sent the draft back to the ODNI and explained the draft ODNI report omitted Dominion Voting Systems' role in the election theft and instead focused solely on the role of the company Smartmatic in global election theft. Smartmatic is, of course, the Venezuelan associated company. The individual at the DOJ was well aware of Martin's and Gary's findings regarding election theft and easily saw through a blatant effort of senior ODNI staff to make one last stand to protect Dominion and their insidious role in election manipulation and theft in the United States. What is also clear is that the ODNI whitewash was designed to hide CIA involvement and collusion in election theft. Multiple members of the Venezuelan regime cartel who have for almost 2 decades directed election theft as a political weapon against the United States have also been working simultaneously as clandestine reporting sources of the CIA, and to this day maintain clandestine contact with the U.S.'s top intelligence agency. So the question is, was Tulsi Gabbard ever able to get this report off the ground? And is it simply a matter of timing? Is Bill Pulte going to finally reveal this? I mean, it sounds like from this book, they're saying it was ready a year ago. But somebody was stalling and making sure that Dominion was not going to be implicated. Now that Bill Pulte is firing all of those deep state officials within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, I would have to believe it would be these people among them that are getting fired. So all we can do is wait. But if anybody wants to tag Bill Pulte on X and say, release the elections, release the fake elections report, like, let's find out, put it out there. We already know what happened, but we need to have this released by the federal government itself so that people can be held accountable. We need people to be indicted. We need them to be arrested. Maybe it's coming as part of the grand conspiracy investigation. There are multiple grand juries currently taking place down in South Florida. So I guess when Joe DeGenova took over, he looked at the number of people that were included in this grand conspiracy investigation, and he said, we're going to have to pare this down. We're going to have to make this a number of smaller investigations, because in order to get these people convicted, if we do it as one RICO case, then you're going to have 50 people who are being tried at the exact same time. If we can get it down to smaller groups of, like, say, 10 or something like that, and then convict them for their specific role in this larger conspiracy, then it would be much easier to make sure that they actually do get convicted. John Brennan is certainly one of those people who is going to be brought up on charges, and he knows that. So as part of his legal strategy, Brennan has just sued the Trump administration as a result of this probe. And wouldn't you know it, the lawsuit has gone before an anti-Trump judge. So he is suing both President Trump and the Justice Department and senior administration officials. He filed the suit yesterday. Brennan filed the suit in the District of Columbia. Of course he did, claiming that he has been vindictively singled out for investigation and prosecution, and he is seeking a court order requiring the White House, the Justice Department, the ODNI, and the CIA to preserve materials and communications potentially relevant to Brennan's legal and constitutional challenges to any future criminal charges. So this case is now before anti-Trump Judge Gia Cobb. She was appointed by Biden. Cobb previously oversaw the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook's lawsuit against the administration. She blocked President Trump from carrying out expedited deportations of illegal aliens under his executive order protecting the American people against invasion, and she blocked the deployment of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. So Gia Cobb is the person that John Brennan was probably hoping he was going to get this case in front of. And to be honest, you throw a stone in Washington, D.C., and you're going to hit somebody who hates Trump. This administration has opted to adopt a policy of using criminal process and prosecution to punish the president's perceived adversaries. This is so rich coming from John Brennan. This is a 46-page filing that his lawyers filed. It is against the backdrop that former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John O. Brennan, plaintiff or Director Brennan, is being vindictively singled out for investigation and prosecution. None of this is true, but we don't have the charges yet. It further points to the investigation of former Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and an ongoing investigation into Minnesota officials. Likewise, the evidence of vindictiveness in this matter is overwhelming. You know, it's not President Trump's fault that the people who tried to take him down are all criminals. You know, when everybody's a criminal and you start investigating those people, suddenly everybody says, oh, I'm being targeted. But they targeted President Trump harder than I've seen anybody in the history of this country be targeted. President Trump has been condemning and calling for Director Brennan's prosecution for years. Given these strong indicia of vindictiveness, Director Brennan expects that he will forcefully challenge any eventual indictment as the product of an unconstitutionally vindictive and selective prosecution. So the lawsuit cites two ongoing federal investigations, including the grand conspiracy probe into Russiagate. The other investigation centers on whether or not Brennan lied under oath to the House Judiciary Committee in 2023 when he claimed that he opposed including the unverified Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment on Russian election interference. Again, it's not President Trump's fault that John Brennan lied. It's not President Trump's fault that John Brennan chose to include the Steele dossier in this fake set of materials that were designed to destroy President Trump's hope of making America great again. But Justice Department officials, he claims, have engaged in a variety of inappropriate activities in their attempt to build a prosecutable case on the hollow foundation of these criminal referrals. Among those activities have been the following: issuing pronouncements that evince a preconceived belief in Director Brennan's guilt, making statements that disclose matters relating to open grand jury investigations, an apparent violation of Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E, reportedly removing or sidelining career prosecutors who have balked at using the criminal process to promote the president's retribution agenda, engaging in apparent forum shopping by moving investigations from federal district to federal district in an effort to find a sufficiently pliant U.S. attorney, and engaging in apparent judge shopping. While we cannot comment on the existence or lack thereof of an investigation, it is certainly rich that John Brennan is accusing anyone of a retribution campaign. That was a direct quote from a Justice Department spokesperson. So, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is also named in the lawsuit, and he discussed this investigation on Fox recently, suggesting that their case is a slam dunk with hundreds of subpoenas and hundreds of witnesses. We are finding out some incredibly troubling things. At some point, at the right time, that will be made public, and the American people will see exactly what happened to this administration and President Trump over the past decade. Well, I personally cannot wait to see that. I would love to see it sooner rather than later. We've already played this clip, so I'm not going to play it again. But, you know, I have made this point on many occasions. I am not in the administration. I know what I would like to see, but I have to have enough faith in the DOJ and President Trump's authority to say that they're going to do it in the way that it needs to be done. I don't just want to feel good because I see John Brennan walking across the screen in handcuffs. I want to see John Brennan convicted, and I want to see him put in prison. I have several more thank yous. Family Man, thank you again for gifting 5 subscriptions and gifting 5 more subscriptions and then gifting 5 more subscriptions. 15 subscriptions gifted, sir. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. ZBM, Louis Beam Me Up, Max Love and Glory, Lee Walden, Glow America, ZBM. Oh, no, wait. This is 5 subscriptions, and for some reason, it duplicated the names 3 times. Okay, either way, still, thank you very much for those 5 subscriptions. Principled Enigma says, in honor of The Last Samurai, this has been a good conversation. I wonder if Trump would say that about Iran. This Last Samurai analogy is rich if you think it through. I've never actually seen The Last Samurai, so I'll have to go ahead and check it out. All right, you guys. Now, going to another anti-Trump judge. A federal appeals court on Thursday has blocked President Trump from firing 19 intelligence officers that were assigned to DEI jobs. This is just the next phase in the administration's attempt to try to get rid of these people and, of course, their efforts to stick around come hell or high water. So this Virginia-based Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld a district court's injunction requiring the intelligence agencies provide the officials with an opportunity to be reassigned. Why? Okay, if that's the case, then you can reassign them to like the worst job at their agency. Like put them in charge of passing out toilet paper in the public restroom. A group of anonymous intelligence officers who had been temporarily reassigned to roles implementing controversial DEI and accessibility programs had filed this lawsuit against the U.S. Director of National Intelligence and the CIA. So the lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. It names the ODNI, the CIA, leadership, which at that time was Tulsi Gabbard, and still CIA Director John Ratcliffe as all of the defendants. The plaintiffs are listed as John and Jane Does, and they claim that they were unfairly targeted simply for their prior assignments to these DEI programs. Now, you know, I mean, again, call a spade a spade. If that's where these people wanted to work, they're probably not the kind of people that you want to keep in government. So U.S. Circuit Judge Nicole Berner, who a Biden appointee, wrote the majority opinion. Berner said the CIA officials who were fired were deprived of due process. You know, it's my understanding that now the president has the right to just fire whomever he wants, whenever he wants. That is something that needs to happen. So this was actually a divided court. This is the appeals court's 3 judges. So it was 2-1. And the U.S. Circuit Judge Nicole Berner, writing with the majority, said that the promises of the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment is the requirement that no person is deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. I mean, does the Fifth Amendment stop you from being fired for being a shit employee? I think not. Anyways, this is probably now going to be reappealed in some fashion by the federal government. Okay, now actually, Family Man did, in fact, donate 10 more subscriptions to people of the channel. Thank you, sir. So let me go through all of them again. We already read off the first. The next 10, Alias, congrats. Lukester, congrats. Acox, congrats. Poison Spawn, congrats. The Hard Way, congrats. Real Gambus, congrats. L. Smith, congrats. Softball Mom, congrats. Eeyore, congrats. And Sherry Marie, congrats. Thank you so much, Family Man. I really appreciate you, buddy. Okay. A fish fry. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. We're talking about making America great again. I'm not talking about anything else. So if you can agree that corrupt public officials need to be prosecuted for crimes that they've committed against America and her people, then I don't think we've got any disagreements. However, if you believe that those corrupt public officials should just be able to continue to run rampant, breaking the law, abusing children, stealing money, committing acts of fraud, violating our civil rights, violating our constitutional rights, then I guess we are enemies. All right, so a federal judge has also just blocked President Trump from being able to stop the Postal Service from picking up mail-in ballots. This is Judge Emmett Sullivan. This is the same judge that oversaw the case of General Flynn several years ago. So he has now blocked the post office from carrying out Trump's order nationwide. And President Trump, if you remember, had ordered the Postal Service to transmit ballots for states only if those states first provided a list of mail-in voters, among other requirements. But that is the most key. So Emmett Smith has now blocked this from being implemented, and he argued that the order would violate the settlement agreement in an earlier 2020 lawsuit between the Post Office and the NAACP. That agreement allowed the courts to oversee the Postal Service's actions relating to the monitoring and timely delivery of election mail. Now, the proposed rule violates paragraph 2 of the agreement because the Postal Service cannot post documents reflecting practices and policies for prioritizing the monitoring and timely delivery of election mail if its policies provide that it will not accept non-compliant mailing and therefore will not deliver mail-in or absentee ballots to some voters, and if it will not mail mail-in ballots to any voters in a state where the state declines or fails to certify a list. Sullivan's orders come after a previous case saw nearly 25 states challenge President Trump's order earlier this year. And those states were successful in blocking the post office from carrying out the order in their states. But Sullivan's order now extends it nationwide. Assistant City Clerk James Blatchford is in this picture, and he's putting together mail-in votes, absentee votes at the Haverhill City Hall to be sent to precincts for Election Day back in 2020 in Haverhill, Mass. Now, these rulings come just a week after an Obama-appointed judge blocked President Trump's efforts to curb non-citizens from registering to vote or voting in federal elections. This is the kind of corruption that I'm talking about. You don't have to be elected to be a member of the deep state. Plenty of judges are. So that lawsuit focused on President Trump's March Executive Order 14248, which directed the creation of a federal voter registration list and imposed new restrictions on eligibility for voting by mail as part of the administration's efforts to combat election fraud. Now, the ruling comes after that judge had blocked our efforts to curb non-citizens from voting or registering. Why is that? People who are not citizens of the United States do not have any right to vote in American elections. President Trump is committed to ensuring that Americans have full confidence in the administration of our elections, and the president's executive order lawfully protects our elections, and we are confident that we will ultimately prevail in its implementation. So clear indication from the administration that they are not simply going to accept either of these orders. They are going to continue on with the legal challenge. The only problem is that November is right around the corner. Now, I'm sure you remember the case of the Broadview 6, where that Media Matters reporter who was running for who was running for Congress, Kat Abba-Gazela, got thrown on her ass in front of the ICE detention facility at Broadview, and she needed to put some ice on it. Anyways, she was part of that group of 6 that were being charged for their efforts to obstruct ICE and Border Patrol activities outside of Broadview. And the case was dropped because of misconduct by the prosecutor. Now, that prosecutor was removed, and the new U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Andrew Boutros, was forced to apologize not only to those bastards from the Broadview 6, but also to a whole lot of other people. Now, as a result of those findings that the prosecutor had manipulated grand juries and done things improperly, which included like having communications with defendants outside of court, Andrew Boutros opened up investigations into all cases through the Northern District of Illinois going back to 2007. Now, these recent revelations about misconduct before this grand jury in the Broadview case have led to a massive internal review. Sherry Mecklenburg is the prosecutor that I made mention of. She was forced out of the office and was basically tasked to then work for the Senate Judiciary Committee on the Democrat side. She got fired from that post after a judge forced the disclosure of her misconduct. Andrew Boutros gave a press conference earlier this week, and he said, when this is all said and done, I will tell you that well over 1,000 grand jury presentations will have been reviewed in the Northern District of Illinois. How many of those were overseen by Sherry Mecklenburg, we don't know. But quite literally, this could have potential ramifications for thousands, if not tens of thousands of defendants. These are a lot of high-profile cases, political prosecutions that have made their way through the Northern District of Illinois. And this is a pretty big deal for Boutros to be doing this investigation, going back so far. Illinois is dirty. And in the course of this investigation, undoubtedly, they are going to find that probably people were convicted that shouldn't have been convicted. They will probably have to nullify the convictions of people who should have been convicted and were convicted properly. And then you're also going to find people who were likely not even put on trial because the prosecutors may have influenced the grand juries. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're going to find here is a massive uncovering of corrupt actions having taken place inside what was one of the most corrupt U.S. attorney's offices in the United States of America. This is a big, big deal. So I'm definitely going to be following it, looking forward to it. All right, now also bad news for David Hearn. David Hearn is that former Olympian who was arrested and charged with misdemeanor destruction of property for his actions at the Lincoln Reflecting Pool last month. He was indicted by a grand jury on felony charges just a little bit earlier today. Now Hearn is a 3-time Olympic canoeist. I didn't even know that they did canoes in the Olympics, but good job for him. Now, he denied any wrongdoing. He was one of a number of people who were indicted in the last month. There was, of course, somebody who poured corrosive chemicals in the water. There was somebody else who poured fertilizer in the water. There were quite a few people who were caught tearing up the liner of the reflecting pool. And Judge Jeanine Pirro, now the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, has gone on record and said that all of these people are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent, which means that they're all going to be facing likely up to 10 years in prison. So what we have is a video from Judge Jeanine's press conference earlier today where she talks about the evidence they have against Mr. Hearn.
This was a deliberate act to damage the reflecting pool at the National Mall that members of the National Park Service actually have worked hard to restore and have witnessed. By Hearn's own admission, On June 19th, he reached down into the pool. Our evidence further shows that the National Park Service employees observed Hearn actually forcefully and violently.
Great again.
Oh, thank you so much to #1 Indiana Dad. Let me read that message. Appreciate you, Bill. Happy Independence Day, Zach. God bless this great republic. Thank you, sir, for the $20 donation. I appreciate you. And just so everybody is aware, if you want to donate and see President Trump dancing on screen and include a message that is not through a Rumble rant or through the Gold Pill program, then you can go to ko-fi.com/redpill78 and you can donate through Ko-Fi. It's a lot like Buy Me a Coffee, but they kicked me off of Buy Me a Coffee because I talked about election security.
Pulling up and removing the bottom liner with both hands. According to witnesses, Hearn damaged approximately 2 square feet of sealant from the bottom of the pool. A parks employee actually told Hearn to stop his behavior and stop what he was doing. Hearn reacted by shouting at that parks employee, saying that she cared too much about the reflecting pool, and why did she even care, since it wasn't her pool.
What a son of a bitch.
Now, Mr. Hearn's behavior was characterized by witnesses as belligerent, rude, and disrespectful, according to National Park Service employees that witnessed the event. Now, let me talk a moment about those employees. Many of those employees have come from around the country because they are proud of this nation. They are proud of the 250th anniversary that we are about to experience. Many of them have decided to step away from their desks and to go outside and actually work next to the pool to witness what was going on, as opposed to staying in a cool office. These are the witnesses that we're talking about in this case. These are the people who care about this particular monument and what is going on.
So going back to that statement from Stephen Miller at the beginning of the show, you've got builders and destroyers. This man, David Hearn, could have been a builder, but he made the choice to be a destroyer because he is so infected with brainworms and TDS. Now, you remember Judge Sparkle Sukananan. She has just had a bar complaint filed against her. Now, she is the judge who's from Trinidad, and she recently ordered the expanded database for verifying voter citizenship was unlawful. She blocked its use. Now, this complaint alleges that she has done several things which should make it necessary for her to be impeached and removed from her position as a judge. The allegations are that she engaged in dishonesty, deceit, and conduct that interfered with the administration of justice during her tenure as a senior Justice Department official before she even joined the federal bench. She's got quite a long history, her and her husband both. First of all, in this referral, she is accused of committing perjury in the confirmation hearing about being lead counsel for hedge funds extracting payments on Puerto Rican debt. And she gave a nasty quote to the New York Times about her law firm representing Trump on 2020 election results. Number two, her husband is attorney Ryan Downer. He's a board member at the Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit 501c3 Civil Rights Corp. They work with activists, judges, and government officials to challenge so-called systemic injustice in the American legal system. Now, his major claim to fame is bringing boatloads of lawsuits against the administration and the government on behalf of illegal aliens. She has a conflict of interest, my friends. Now, you can find this online, but this bar complaint was sent to the Office of Disciplinary Counsel at the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. I don't know how likely it is that it'll be taken seriously, but it is something that is very, very serious. Judge Sparkles Sukananan is somebody who should not be sitting on the bench, and I think that anybody who is foreign born should never be allowed to exist in a position of power such as this. Now, we also have a National Legal and Policy Center complaint that was filed against the former lawyer of Judge E. Jean Carroll. This is a misconduct complaint because Roberta Kaplan, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, failed to disclose the $6.4 million in outside legal funding from Reid Hoffman, the frequent attendee of Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. Now, he is under federal investigation. E. Jean Carroll is under federal investigation, and it looks like Roberta Kaplan is also under federal investigation. We actually have the complaint filed right here. This was sent to the Attorney Grievance Committee for the Supreme Court of the State of New York. Again, another totally captured court. But the National Legal and Policy Center has submitted this complaint with the Grievance Committee against Roberta Kaplan for violating the rules of professional conduct regarding the outside funding of her client's defamation lawsuits against President Trump from billionaire Reid Hoffman and his nonprofit American Future Republic. So they go and describe it at length, and then they actually provide a whole bunch of supporting documentation and sauce. Roberta Kaplan most certainly has violated the rules of professional responsibility, and I would hope that this could lead to her being disbarred. In addition to E. Jean Carroll being brought up on charges of perjury and Reid Hoffman being brought up on charges of whatever the hell they can get him on. So we'll be continuing to keep an eye on that as well. All right. Now, we also have a little bit of fraud news for you. The FBI has just added a new name and face to their list of top 10 wanted fugitives. This is a woman by the name of Emily Tai. She is wanted in the orchestration of a $142 million Medicaid fraud scheme. She fled the United States back to Vietnam, and authorities are offering a $150,000 reward for information that leads to her arrest. Nice little payday.
The former owner of a lab in Houston lands herself on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fraudsters list. 41-year-old Emily Tai was originally charged in July of 2022 with conspiring to commit health fraud, conspiring to defraud the U.S. government, and paying and accepting illegal kickbacks tied to a federal healthcare program. Prosecutors say starting in 2019, Tai paid marketers to send her lab Medicare patients for expensive genetic tests they often didn't need. She received about $95 million after billing the government roughly $142 million for the tests.
Her laboratory was here in the Houston area, but she was collecting DNA samples from people across the country. Even though there may not be per se a traditional victim like there may be in a violent crime, the victim once again is us. It's the taxpayer.
Tai was granted bail and required to wear an ankle monitor, but disappeared the very next day. Authorities later learned she was able to flee the country via a private airplane to Vietnam using a false identity. The FBI is offering a $150,000 reward for her arrest, with the agency warning that Tai should be considered a flight risk. Taylor Tinsley, One America News.
All right, so the hard way, so you say Peter Thiel controls Rumble. He obviously controls Palantir. I mean, what do you expect me to do? We have to operate within the confines of the system that we have provided for us. I stream on Rumble, I stream on Pilled, I stream on Getter, I stream on X, and I also stream on YouTube. YouTube kicked me off years ago for talking about election fraud, and Rumble is where my audience migrated to. So, you know, I may not like Peter Thiel, but I'm not going to allow it to stop me from having my say, because freedom of speech is a gift in this country that is not always allowed us, which is really unfortunate. So it is what it is, and I'll go ahead and just continue to speak my piece. All right. We also, I do want to announce an arrest and the identification of the killers of Penn State student Billy Schmidt. Billy was the young man who was unfortunately gunned down in Philadelphia as two youths stole his phone, and he attempted to get it back from them. Now, it turns out that the youths are both 16 years old. Billy Schmidt was a college student, and he attempted to get his phone back from these young men. These future scholars decided instead of giving the phone back, they should just shoot and kill Billy in the street. And then they discarded his phone as they ran away laughing. The two men that are being sought are Azubair Uten Fleming, 16. He was captured in Colorado Springs by the U.S. Marshals. Their Violent Offender Task Force. And the other guy, Kasim Smith, who is also 16, is currently being sought. Now, the two teens are accused of ambushing and fataling Mr. Schmidt on the streets of South Philadelphia around 1:30 a.m. on June 6th. Right here is the footage, or excuse me, is an image of the U.S. Marshals arresting Mr. Azubair Uten Fleming. Now, the teen suspect was arrested hours after his stepfather, Dante Abdul Malik, was taken down for allegedly helping Uten Fleming escape the East Coast and then head to Colorado to hide out. Billy Schmidt should be alive today. If it wasn't for the fact that these monsters had zero thought or care for their fellow man, Billy would still be alive. Uten Fleming grabbed Schmidt's phone before punching him and then going through his pockets. Surveillance footage from the South Philadelphia street captured these two masked youths pushing Schmidt off the road and knocking him to the ground before walking away. He had just finished his third year at Penn State. He went after them, pleading for his phone. He didn't even try to attack them. And then Uten Fleming chucked the phone down the street, and then they split up as Schmidt continued to follow Smith. And then Smith pulled out a gun from his backpack and fired the fatal shot, striking Mr. Schmidt in the chest and killing him. Both of them walked away from the scene. They hopped into an SUV before fleeing. Schmidt was transferred to Penn Presbyterian Medical. He was pronounced dead. Abdul Malik, the stepfather, 35, he's accused of assisting in...
Make America great again.
Thank you so much to Ish. Let me see if there's a message from Ish. Ish says, appreciate you, brother. God bless America. Thank you for the $20 rant. I really appreciate it. $20 in coffee over that code-5/redpill78. Appreciate you. So Abdul Malik is, he's arrested, charged with hindering apprehension, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. This is Abu Zair Uten Fleming right there. He's the one who got arrested. And this is the other one right here, Smith. He is still wanted and remains a fugitive. Uten Fleming is being held at the Zebulon Pike Youth Center, and he's waiting extradition to Philadelphia. Smith is only 4'10". He's a little guy, and he remains at large, and they have only offered a $5,000 reward for his capture. Both of them are facing murder, robbery, and conspiracy to murder charges. They will likely have additional charges tapped onto them as well. Before they were captured, Schmidt's grieving father called for justice. He said, I want to find the two people and make them pay. Schmidt was studying digital journalism and media at Penn State World Campus, and his family said he was a really kind, great guy. He was a really good person. Cared about everybody, never hurt or bothered a soul, never hurt anyone. And for him to get shot like this is a travesty. Yes, it always is a travesty. And these animals seem to think nothing of it, just taking a life.
It is now behind bars after being arrested by the U.S. Marshals Service in Colorado. Prosecutors in Philadelphia announcing yesterday that Kasim Smith and Azubair Uten Fleming, both 16 years old, will be charged as adults in the murder and robbery of the Penn State student. Police say that
with names like that, I wonder if they're anchor babies.
Two teens took Schmidt's phone before shooting him as he returned home from an NBA Finals watch party on June 6th.
I want everyone to know his name and who he was. He was the most selfless person. He always made sure I was okay.
He never bothered anybody. So, he's the most unlikely person. And I'm actually shocked that he chased the kid who took the phone.
And police are still looking for Smith. He is considered armed and dangerous. The Marshals Fugitive Task Force in Philadelphia has been asked to assist in apprehending the teen. We'll send it back to you, Brian.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You know, why is it that the weakest people always seem to be the ones that are so quick to murder? All right, you guys, we are going to go ahead and call it there for the day. I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us Let's see. Filter Dog says that he just saw my soft disclosure ad. It is fantastic. It really is a great soft disclosure ad. That's correct. ZBM says, listening while relaxing. I hope you, Lisa, and everyone watching has one hell of a 4th of July weekend. 250 years. God bless the U.S. And a shout out to my man, Zach, who bought us tickets to Young Washington. Hey, happy 4th of July, and I hope that you enjoy seeing Young Washington. That's great. Principled Enigma, finally, when watching Last Samurai, view Last Samurai as what Trump did. Hold on, why is this? I can't see the full text here. View Last Samurai as what Trump did, and those that were attempting to colonize Japan at the time as Iran. I'm surprised you haven't seen it yet. It was one of Cruise's best performances. Yeah, just one of those movies I've never seen. I'll have to check it out and give it a watch over the weekend. All right, you guys, I really appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. I do have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let me say thank you to them for continuing to sponsor the show, and thank you to the Kids Guide. Parents, grandparents, it's time for some real talk about the second American milestone that we're about to hit this weekend. It's going to be America's 250th birthday. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance that the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids and grandkids understand why this country matters, not just the fireworks and the hot dogs that I'm sure we're all going to be enjoying this weekend, but more importantly, the story behind it all. There is a free guide called The Kids Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce your kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what it was they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the very moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. And it's going to break it down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy. It's not going to water it down or make it feel like schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. But the best part is, it's completely free with the special offer. All you pay is the $2 for shipping and handling. So to pick one up, head on over to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, or you can use that QR code you see on screen, and the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday will be yours today. Because America's story matters, let's make sure that the next generation knows it. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. Don't forget about the final sponsors of the program, my friends over here at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. onenessdrops.com/redpill78. When you use that code, you will get 15% off your order, whether it's the chlorine dioxide water purification kits, which are necessary to keep you safe and healthy when you need to make clean drinking water, either on the trail or in an emergency situation. You're going to want to have that on hand. Their mullein extract tincture for healthy lungs, or their soursop extract tincture for cellular regeneration, or their pure DMSO, which is an incredible solvent that you put on your skin, and it helps bring blood flow to damaged areas of your body. It reduces pain. It does so much amazing stuff, and it is so easy to use. It's definitely something that I have on hand, and I use it all the time because I am getting up there. I'm going to be 48 this year in August, guys. I can't even believe it. All right, but they also have bundles that you can buy. They will give you a discount when you buy that bundle, and then you can take the extra 15% off when you use my code RedPill78, onenessdrops.com/RedPill78. And always, my friends at rncstore.com, use code RP78 to save 10% off their apricot seed products, their B17 products, Laetrile, amygdalin. This is American made. And this is definitely one of those things that I would be taking on a regular basis if I got the big C. Many people have used it. Many people have had excellent results. All right, you guys, good luck. God bless. Thank you for being here. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. We're going to end today with Hillary Clinton and James Comey in the song that Esther had asked to hear, and I'm just trying to remember where I put it. Hold on just a second. It was What Difference Does It Make? Where is the What Difference Does It Make? Is it this one, I think? No. No. That's not it. Gosh. Oh, this is it. Here we go.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending, but first, let me tell you what we found.
Oh, I also need to say thank you to Family Man once again for dropping 5 more memberships over on Rumble. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you, and congratulations to Barbrox, my darling Sherry, Thormac, Rumble Me, and Mrs. Watley.
110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, not even Gmail.
Well, first of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary.
Nothing was marked classified.
There is evidence of
Nothing
tremendous
was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
Oh my gosh.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains.
It was a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret.
Wasn't the best choice.
36 of those chains
I said
secret.
it was a mistake.
And 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
With respect to our recommendation.
Hey guys, do me a favor, hit that like button before you go.
Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make? 110 emails.
It wasn't the best choice.
52 email chains.
I made a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top
It was not a good choice.
36 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
And thank you so much to Socialist Mob for making that excellent, excellent song. All right, y'all. We'll see you on the flip side.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do